Ah! My audio wasn't working right there. But now it is. Excellent, excellent. Such a pain. Leveling him up. Actually one of those shells. Really? Spike and Wilston are what I need still. Pretty sure that unlocks crafting the different cigarettes too. "17 minutes till the wall." Tape.
Hey, Ghost.
Hey, what's up, Yellow
Sorry.
Lantern? How
Are
you
you?
doing? No, we're live. We're live. But good to have you here. I think now is as good a time as any to get started. Um, First of all, it is 9 o'clock. It is St. Patrick's Day, the great one day we celebrate the Irish, of course. March the 17th, and we pinch people for not wearing green for some reason. But yes, it is St. Patty's Day. The banks are collapsing. The leprechauns are running away with the gold as they are being bailed out by Big Daddy Uncle Sam because, well, we can't let the market work and fix itself. We got to block banks from being bought out from the consequences of their own actions of listening to the government. Credit Suisse, on the other side of the pond, was denied future funding by Saudi Arabia. A bigger sign that Saudi Arabia moving out of the influence of the United States and into the influence of the BRICS nations and China as well. But how are you doing otherwise? The entire market and world is slowly collapsing in real time. But how are you?
Oh, well, I mean, I could go for a drink, given what the all that has transpired the last couple of weeks.
Well, yes, the belt tightening may be loosening a bit. At least that's what a lot of people in the market are hoping for, right? That this'll get them to say, "Oh, let's just put the inflation target at 4, right, guys? let's
Yes,
let's
or
move it up
put
to
it at
3 and 4."
or just the inflation target will be transitory now.
Exactly. Yes, it's a transitory inflation target. It's whatever we need it to be. Oh man, I remember when the bank run started on Silicon Valley Bank. I was kind of like, "Oh, okay, that's not good. Oh no." And then they bailed them out, and I'm like, "This is even worse because they." Do you know what they bailed them out with?
Other
Yo, Lantern?
people's banks money, right?
Effectively, yes. It's a quote-unquote insurance fund for various banks that every bank pays fees into, right? Part of they pay fees into, and it's supposed to be there as like a measure of last resort to protect banks. Well, the admin, they were even going around yelling, "Oh, by the way, guys, you didn't spend a dime of taxpayer dollars on this. Not a dime, right? But do you know how the taxpayers paid for this, Yellow Lantern?
Bank fees from
Yep,
deposits and
bank
withdrawals.
fees, low bank fees, less interest rates, less return on their capital in the bank because the bank had to pay, So it's like, yeah, you didn't like when you make a withdrawal from the bank, you don't see like, oh, I only got 99 cents on the dollar. No, it's just instead of making like 1.5 or 2% on your money, you're making like 0.5 or 0.65. That's all money that your deposits would have been accumulating. But no, the bank instead took that money that they would have been giving back to clients and instead sent it for this fund. Yes. The nature of how this happened, in hindsight, is kind of obvious, right, Yellow Lantern? Like what happened, but it's kind of interesting, It's like, okay, we all know 2008 happened, right? 2008 happened. A bunch of banks took out a bunch of risky mortgage-backed securities. A bunch of ratings agencies owned by the same banks that were selling them said, "Oh, this is investment grade." Now it was actually junk. Sold it to a bunch of banks that kept it on their balance sheet because it kept their return ratios higher and supposedly was supposed to have a lower risk profile. Now, that all collapsed. So what did the government do? Well, they gave guidance and regulated the banks and said, "Okay, guys, here's the thing. You need low-risk assets. You need to go, make your balance sheets safer than they were in 2008. So what did they do? The Silicon Valley Bank loaded up on treasury bonds. But they also lended out money against shares of these tech companies. So they loaded up a bunch of debt to these tech companies on the price of their shares at the time. So, loaned a couple billions of dollars out to these companies, and they got stock from these companies. What has happened since 2020? Well, quantitative tightening started. The U.S. global economic financial war against Russia and China began by raising interest rates. Higher interest rates mean all these companies contracted value because money isn't as free as it used to be. Less money's flowing into these stocks, value of the stocks goes down. Value of your stocks go down, you become less solvent. Someone points this out, people pull their money. Why? Because hey, I don't want to lose. It's it's a prisoner's game. If you don't pull, if everyone doesn't pull your money out, everyone's fine. Because the bank will stay solvent and you'll keep your money. But if enough people say, I'm not going to risk everyone else not pulling their money out, then it starts losing solvency. What happens when a bank needs more money? They have to sell that stock, which is now at 50, sometimes 40% of what it was worth when they lent out the money. And what else did they load up on, though?
Yes.
This is the other important part.
That's
Treasure. Sorry.
oh no, I'm still. Yeah.
Okay. The other important thing
You're
was they
hitting
were told to
me
get less
like
risky assets. Sorry.
Mhm. Yeah,
They're-
sorry. It's like I'm trying to study for an assignment, and you're giving me
Oh,
like
I
Spark
know.
Notes.
There's a lot to this, but it all makes sense when you put it all together. The other end of the spectrum, right? They lent this money out against risky shares of these venture capital funded, angel funded tech companies. But they also loaded up on treasury bonds to de-risk their portfolio, because bonds are a safe investment, right? It's like they pay 2% a year. The U.S. government's not going to default on those. I mean, if they default on them, we're going to nuclear war or worse. Okay, like the scenario where the U.S. government defaults on their treasury bonds is like catastrophic. We have way worse problems. Okay, but there was one thing that no one accounted for, right? No one accounted for quantitative tightening. And when you have a treasury bond that you took out at 1.5%, and new treasury bonds are worth 3.5% or 3.65, no one wants to buy your shitty 1.5% treasury bond, right? You got 1,000
Right.
treasury bond paying 1.5%, you can go spend that same $1,000 and make 2% more. So to sell that treasury bond, you have to discount it not only on the life of the bond remaining, but also on that 2% difference. So your bond is worth less than you paid for it. And as rates go up, your entire bond portfolio's value goes down. You cannot meet your capital requirements, so you have to sell treasury bonds. You've got to sell stocks. And when you sell the stock, by the way, mass selling like that, it drives the price down, because there's a massive selling pressure, because this bank has no choice but to sell this stock to make it up. So this cycle just continues, and clients are withdrawing more money from the bank, so they have less physical cash on hand, right? Because I don't know what the reserve ratio is right now. It might be 10-1 or 20. I don't know what the exact reserve ratio. Let me look at what the exact reserve ratio is, because that'll tell you also how bad it is.
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. So that's basically how this bank run happened. Effectively, okay, so it looks like right now, where is it? What is the current reserve ratio requirements? What is it? What is the FT? What does it say? Reserve requirement ratio 1980 to 23. 2023, the reserve ratio of the U.S. is 0%. That's not right. It's not that low, but it's not good. But effectively, that's what's happening, right? People are drawing their money, which makes the banks less solvent. So more people want to draw their money because they don't want to lose all of it. And so the interesting part about this, the big scandal in this that's actually there, is that the federal government bailed out Silicon Valley Bank. But allegedly, there were players in the market that were willing to buy the bank, take on their debts, acquire their assets. Like there were players willing to do it. But they stepped in, they blocked that deal and made sure. And it's no surprise that the party in power has a lot of support from Silicon Valley and big tech companies. And shock when all of their venture capitalists and angel investors, are risking losing their money rather than let the market play out and fix the problem itself, which the market was actually doing, bail it out to make sure they get their money so nothing goes wrong. So that's the Silicon Valley Bank. The Credit Suisse story is more interesting as a global issue, right? It's definitely it's definitely a crack in the wall of like the unipolar world order. You know that like Saudi Arabia was supposed to be the next creditor of last resort for Credit Suisse. However, to the surprise of everyone, they said, "Oh no, we can't risk any capital on this bank, even though we had agreements to provide extra liquidity for this bank." Well, surprise! Right after they got closer ties with Iran in a China controlled deal, they also didn't bail out the European Credit Suisse bank. So they're indirectly supporting the Russian regime in their war in Ukraine, and they're indirectly attacking the U.S. unipolar order. And who knows? More yuan traded oil is probably in the works. It's definitely a crack in the alliance between Saudi Arabia and the U.S., which honestly, I think there's going to be retaliation for this. I think they're going to lose. They're going to not have the international community, quote unquote, support for their war in Yemen. And and they're gonna suffer consequences from this, but it is a long-term thinking strategy because they're trying to like readjust their position to a more multipolar world, right? That's why they're doing this right now. That's why they're getting along with Iran despite their historical differences and their territorial ambitions that conflict with Iran, as well as their sectarian differences with them. So the Credit Suisse angle is interesting. The Silicon Valley Bank is just pure corruption and graft and paying off their donors. Like that's what happened. They didn't want to risk the market potentially repricing the situation. No, just here's your money. Here's your money. Take it. So, what are your thoughts on this Yellow Lantern? I know that was a lot. That was a lot,
Well,
and I can clarify
I mean,
anything.
what is there not to say? It's a basically a banking crisis in the making that this doesn't fix any of it.
No,
It
no, it
either kicks
doesn't.
the can down the road just a couple of months,
And
or
Silicon
it just
Valley Bank, important note, is only like $250 billion of assets. You had First Republic Bank as well, which is I think $1.6 trillion of assets. That went from it lost 80 to 90% of its stock value. Like over the weekend after the Silicon Valley Bank issue. So, so they're in trouble, and they spent I think like half of the entire reserve trust fund or whatever it is just bailing out Silicon Valley Bank. So you've got a bank that's 7 times as the size, almost 7 times the size of Silicon Valley Bank, and you just spent almost all of your quote unquote bailout reserve on the first bank to collapse. So, if any of those other banks collapse, there is no more money. They'll have to pass like a TARP or another massive money printing, which will once again kickstart inflation, which will once again cause massive problems for the parties in power, and will not be alleviated because of the U.S. energy, the Western energy policy. It's like it's all like everything that could go wrong is getting worse, and it's being managed horribly. It's absolutely terrible. What's up, Pie Games? How you doing, man?
yes, too far, just by the looks. And I just think, what do you think? Is this? I mean, at this point, people would say, is a recession kind of priced in, given
We are in a
the
recession
signs?
right now. We were in an actual technical recession already. I think we're kind of in a like a real recession now. Or I mean, like, well, I think in 6 months they will call what we're in a recession, right? Like all the financial punditry will be like, "Oh, you were in a recession 6 months ago." Yeah, like it's absolute, it's an absolute fact. Like we're in a recession right now. We're not in the official technical definition because of the way that GDP is calculated, but like we're in a recession. Like it's just a fact. I mean, we printed all this money, and instead of not spending $2 trillion at the end of the pandemic, instead of pulling off the gas a little, we the people in charge of the U.S. decided, fuck it, we're gonna throw gasoline on the fire, right? Yellow Lantern, let's just throw more gasoline. That'll fix it. So they could have slowed this, but instead it's like we we're trying to hit the brakes, and the bridge is it's an unfinished bridge we're about to go off, and that's when the crash will happen. There's an old quote about recessions and market crashes, and it goes, "How did I lose my money? Slowly at first, then suddenly all at once." That's kind of usually how the recession's gonna hit.
It's also how the collapse goes: slowly, then suddenly.
Yeah, the economic global financial recession though, like yeah, we're there. The surprising part is like, the U.S. actually has a lot of capability and potential and ability to like undo this. Like they absolutely have. Like we have the resources, we have the technology, we have the assets, we have the human capital, we have everything we would need, to put ourselves in a position to be at the steering wheel of the future. But we're led by incompetent, corrupt people, so we live with the consequences of that. You know, like in spite of even with all the damaging work, all the terrible policy, all of that, we could actually still turn this around. But the reality is our leadership won't let that, because that's not the vision for the future they see. It's not the vision for the future they want. And that's like George W. Bush said like 20 years ago. Look, we need a controlled crash of the economy. We have to land the plane, they said. You've got the U.S. and we have to land the global economy all at once, and that's what they're doing. they're trying, and you look at climate change, and the policy surrounding it is a vehicle for this. Obviously, reduce energy use, take down everyone's standard of living, kind of shrink the economy in real time without calling it a recession is what they're trying to do. Unfortunately, they also printed a ton of money. Because of the pandemic, quote unquote. The big pandemic was like their Trojan horse to go through with shrinking the economy and shrinking civil liberties and testing the limits of their power, as you saw in Canada, where they took advantage of they tested out financial tyranny in Canada. They tested out surveillance tyranny in various other countries as well. It was a testing ground. It was like, okay, it's like, hey, we got all these new tanks, let's try them out. That's what they did with the pandemic, more or less. So we're here, and they're not going to give up on this policy anytime soon, because they're all in on this, and they know if they fail at this, well, they hang. Like, I'm not advocating for violence or anything, but they know what happened to Saddam Hussein. They know what happens to failed tyrants. If you fail as a tyrant, you die. Like,
what happens to what?
Yep, it's what happened to Gaddafi.
Well,
that's what happens.
I don't know. Was there any sort of accountability for what had happened the prior age?
Nope, there was no accountability for 9/11. There was no accountability for the expansion of the surveillance state.
It seems like
there was no accountability.
The good guys don't always.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There was no accountability for any of the damage they did. Oh, sorry, Snorlax. When you say something of value, I will respond to it.
I don't know. You gotta look at like.
You are correct, though. There hasn't been any accountability. You're absolutely right about that. But where do we go here as quote unquote a society, or well, I think we have to. If you want advice for what we can do. You're going to have to work at the local level. You're going to have to ignore federal regulations and restrictions. You're going to have to obstruct them. You have to have your local and state government obstruct them and, take them to court and sue them out of existence when they break the law. Like, you need resources, you need time, and you need powerful people on your side. You need to convince Elon Musk that, he can work with you. You need people like that. You need people like Peter Thiel, people that are you need specifically anti-establishment people that want to work with you. Like that's the quote unquote way you can win. I'm not even saying it'll work. I'm not saying it'll be successful. But that is an attempt. That's how you would attempt this, I would say. What do you think?
Well, it takes a long time to build a counter release. And, you need possibly a lot of spiritual and cultural changes to go along with it for this to be successful. I mean,
Bye
there's
bye,
kind of a
Snorlax. Go ahead.
it's not giving me some Thomas 777 flashes.
Well, this guy's name is Snorlax, and like he always says like goodbye, I'm leaving, and then comes back like 20 minutes later. So
Understandable. Sometimes, you need to go get something to eat, go take a break, do something
oh
like
yeah,
heads out. I don't know, go
yeah,
use the
no, I
restroom.
know, but he acts like, yo, you were rude to me, I'm going to leave. And it's like, okay, later. Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible to do. It's gonna take effort and time and sacrifice and resources is what it'll take. But but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, what the West should first do is just probably, I don't know, try to come to a negotiated settlement on Ukraine. Try to get that to stop wasting all of our military resources and money. I mean, really, we need to put our elites in jail for money laundering so much money through Ukraine. Really, that's kind of what we have to do first, right? If we could get accountability for that global money laundering, that could solve a lot of problems up ahead. Um, but that's another issue altogether. It's like one thing at a time, right? But
In my latest piece on Substack, I just tweeted it out. I'm just about to tweet it out. Really, nothing too big or substantial. Just a little update post and some ideas of what I'm trying to do.
okay, status report.
Status, basically that. Ah, yeah. We got a lot of some interesting things down the pipeline. A couple book reviews, a couple retrospectives, and we have concluded watching the Clone Wars series. I'm gonna write up a bit about it and what I thought.
You do your whole analysis of the series.
Yeah, not break down each episode by
Well, yeah, yeah. I
each.
mean, that would take literally forever to do like a bunch of
Yeah,
episode by episode synopsises.
I think just some of the interesting tidbits, like the effects it had, the thing. I don't know. Ghost type good. What do you think is the long-lasting impact of the Clone Wars? What would you say is it it catapulted the careers of like many voice actors who ended up becoming Star Wars fans themselves, or
I would
like
say I think what the
the
lasting legacy of the sorry to interrupt. I would say the lasting legacy of the Clone Wars was bringing Star Wars to a new generation. Like, because yes, you could always watch the original movies. You could always watch the prequels, right? But like the Clone Wars kind of bringing it in a serialized format. Making it something that like kids could come home from elementary school and like, oh, there's new Star Wars on. Like it kept it alive in the public consciousness. And I think its other lasting legacy is that it kind of rehabilitated Star Wars a bit. Like it,
I feel like I mean it helped rehabilitate the Clone Wars as well.
yeah, like it rehabilitated the prequels. I guess is what I was trying to say. Like because the people, like the common popular opinion was like, oh god, the prequels suck. Oh, they're terrible. Oh, midi chlorians, and it's like, yeah, but there's nothing like super egregious. It's like, yeah, midi chlorians are
I've
dumb.
always
Yeah.
I followed I follow like the remember the videos by like Ruth David Stewart. He kind of said that like the prequels had great ideas, but the execution was very uneven.
Oh,
And
actually, hold on. I hate to interrupt. Could you post the link for your article in my in one of my chats for
yeah.
Scooby Doo on Zombie Island? Because one of my chatters says, "Why is Scooby Doo Zombie Island special to you?" I think the easiest way to explain that would probably be just to link the article to it, right?
Oh yes.
Because you wrote a whole article about it. I mean, that'd be the easiest way to
Yeah.
explain it,
Well,
right?
I am also going to. Well, I am actually. I'm gonna kind of edit and clean it up as well.
Oh, okay. It
Um,
needs to be cleaned up.
well, just fix a few errors. Simplify some sentences. One of the biggest funny is I got a comment is like inconsistency is like you use the word and the and symbol interchangeably. most people like when they write, they say either you stick with one or you got to stick with one and make it
I
consistent.
tend to agree with the consistency argument for like yeah, if you're using unless it's like for like like J&J or for like logos or like trademarks. Yeah, I would say if you write out AND, write out AND. If you use the ampersand, use the ampersand. But if you could sum up why Scooby Doo Zombie Island special to you, I guess uh,
Well,
chat was
yes.
asking.
All right. So to basically put it, so this was one of the first movies I remember watching as a kid, a few years after it came, like about 3 years when it came to DVD. And from my experience, like I remember this is like one of my favorite, like probably my first experience to like horror, to like what fear is, to what because I think
Really?
it's considered to be actually probably the really truly scariest and most I would most
Well,
special. I think the
there's
best.
legitimate danger in it, right? I mean, like
Yeah,
usually there's some
it's to
danger in
borrow to
Scooby
borrow a
Doo, but
term
like
from
at the
Gotham
end,
Chess.
yeah, at the
It's
end it's
like
usually like it's a mask, right? But this time
yeah,
it was
like the
legit.
danger levels were like present. Like it was an actual true danger. The danger levels were extremely high.
Yeah,
I'm borrowing a chest from the. I'm borrowing a chest. I'm
chess.
borrowing a term from Gotham Chess. He talks like in his concepts of like the game where danger levels are like where you threaten to take a piece or to put your king in check, and you raise the danger to you either have to like take action to either you danger the opponent's like pieces as well or you get them out of the way.
So it's
This
like
was the
playing
case.
chicken,
So
right?
yeah, and I also point out because people really don't understand like how much of a like rejuvenation that Scooby-Doo enjoyed from this movie as well, because I get this into my article. Like there was a time period where Scooby-Doo was kind of on the decline. I
Oh,
think
it's
that
just
was from.
reruns on Boomerang or the Scooby Doo Junior show with the. Do you remember the Scooby Doo Junior show?
Oh yes, it was called A Pup Named Scooby-Doo.
Pup named Scooby Doo. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, it was actually a fairly good show. I mean, it's one of the few times I can think of when you have like kid versions of the characters, the main characters, actually
It
being actually working for its what it's intended to
it
be.
did make sense, like they were like meet up in a tree house. They were like basically like club friends, right? They got together after school to solve mysteries. Like it made sense. Like it was kind of a good context, for like Scooby Doo. Like,
Hmm.
but
And the reason that so I think there's actually in my article, I'm actually going to segment this, going to fix it up a little bit. One of the biggest criticism, like the face of the problems during Scooby Doo during the late
oh, and
70s to early
Pie
90s.
Games, I'll get your question after he answers this. Sorry, go ahead.
So one of the biggest is like, you know, the Scooby Doo. It was on hiatus for a long time after that cartoon ended in the like early '90s. So this revival now. So Hanna Barbera's properties went under Turner Network when they were
Yeah,
acquired by Warner
Turner Network
Brothers.
acquired Cartoon Network at that time, right?
No, they were under the same syndicated. I think Turner owned Cartoon Network, and no, actually, no, they didn't own Cartoon. They owned the Boomerang channel. They were under the. They had like the
I
rights to the
I thought Turner did own
syndicated.
Cartoon Network. Maybe they do now, but
Well, they merged with Warner Brothers in 1996,
right, right. Okay.
and one of the things is they noticed that the popularity of Scooby Doo had arisen again, thanks to like reruns of it on like Cartoon Network, on
Boomerang or Cartoon
Boomerang,
Network.
and
What
the
was it?
thing
Early
was,
2000s when Pup Named Scooby Doo had its run.
no, it was late '80s.
Sorry, the rerun. I mean, like when they were running it again.
Hmm. Yeah, it was kind of reruns like that. The show concluded in like 1991, I believe. But I think for a long time, Scooby Doo kind of lost its sort of unique gags. Like it was the big thing that the classic people get. Despite all the the subpar animation that we would say today, as well as the
All the
you know
reuse sequences, like running through the hallways, or zoinks, and then run away
yeah, like wait, the like, hey, how come we're running through the same? Haven't we run past that sofa, chair, and lamp like 50 times
5
already?
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think this. So the thing is, Scooby-Doo kind of went through a formula change a lot. There was the period where they were meeting celebrities, both from like the fictional universe of Hanna-Barbera
Or the
cartoons.
Globetrotters.
Yeah, the Harlem Globetrotters. They met Batman and Robin. They met
You're right,
some
they did.
celebrities. Yeah, they've actually crossed over with Batman and Robin quite a few times, given in both current context as well as in the past.
Oh.
But what makes it so in the 19 now this is kind of the thing. So if there was a character that most people would put the blame on to be like the representation of everything that went wrong with Scooby Doo, it would be Scrappy Doo. You know what I mean, Ghost?
Lazy, and he's literally just Scooby-Doo, but an obnoxious kid.
Well, not originally. So the idea of Scrappy was that okay, the ratings were going bad, and they wanted to, one of the best ways to do that was to like you want to introduce a new character, and so that this was Scooby's cousin, who was his gimmick and shtick was that he was willing to try to pick a fight with the monsters
Ah, let
and
me at him.
other
Come on.
yeah instead of being a coward. And now he was good for the kids. The kids loved him, but a lot of the other
Because
fans
he was
just
scrappy.
yeah, they didn't care for him. They thought he was a little annoying. They didn't like his voice, and that he frequently found himself in like unnecessary danger trying to beef up. And what ended up happening was that he was kept in as other characters like Fred, Daphne, and Velma. They were gradually written out of the show or didn't appear as often as they used to. And he would himself would end up taking on their characteristics, like setting up the traps, being the bookworm, or being the incisive investigator.
He
And
kind of would kind of like amorphous blob, like those
and
missing characters.
yeah, and then there'd be movies like there was definitely some movies like this is the era where like Shaggy had a red shirt instead of his trademark green shirt, and all the other. So this
Outrageous.
was the era now. Scrappy became so disliked that he ended up being the trope namer for the trope, the Scrappy. You ever heard of this writing trope?
Actually, not heard the trope of
Well, it comes
Scrappy.
from the TV tropes wiki, called pop, but the TV tropes pop culture wiki. But the short end is like this is a character that's intensely disliked and always gets a negative reaction that was not intended by the writers.
Kind of like a Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, that's the Star Wars equivalent. Everyone like that's probably the second kind of Scrappy character.
Yeah.
And now the difference is like, there are characters you're supposed to hate. We all hate Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter. We're supposed to dislike that character.
She's designed to be unlikable. Like,
Yeah.
she's designed to be the bad guy. She's designed to be dishonest. She's.
Yeah,
We would call
and it
her a
makes you feel
journalist
like
in the
when they
modern
get
day.
their comeuppance, like when they finally get like their comeuppance, we're like cheering along with all the other characters who hated this one. But this is a character that's like not designed to be hated. That was designed to be liked, and they're just hated whenever they were. And with Jar Jar Binks, he was supposed to be funny, but he's
supposed
not.
to be the funny guy for the kids that they all laugh at. He makes the physical humor, the lowbrow humor that all the kids are supposed to love.
Yeah, and well, he's not. He's
Well,
he ends up to the
Doesn't
point where
land. People think he's a offensive stereotype. It's like everything that could go wrong goes wrong with him.
yeah, to the point where people actually had to.
And
make
this is like
bootleg
this is pre like peak woke too.
Well, yeah, before the hysterias of the, I mean, the political correctness phenomenon was there in the '90s as well.
Oh yeah,
but
no, it was absolutely there, but it wasn't.
It was
peak.
less. It was more incremental and less blatant. But
Yeah,
I think
it was less. It was less. It was less effective in its power. I
yeah,
would say.
and the point is like the way Scrappy the way it was worked with him was that he was kind of treated like that character. Now, he didn't always become super annoying, especially when like he wasn't the focus, but it was clear like this character became the representative, and it wasn't entirely his fault, by the way. I think there was just there were other unforeseen circumstances that were happening behind the scenes that
I mean,
also.
it all comes down to the writers at the end of the day because
Mhm.
they
And
create the
just the
character and
style. I
breathe
mean,
life into it. I mean,
yeah, and plus Hanna-Barbera's cartoon style started to become somewhat dated when you had like the Transformers cartoons with their high quality animation, or like the early anime stuff from the
yeah, the
classic
competition
film.
from Japan was a big deal,
Yeah,
especially once
you
they
know,
started localizing it. And it's like you know giving
yeah,
something
that was.
novel and an alternative to normal Hanna Barbera fare.
Yes, and it just sort of, the thing fell by the wayside. So when they commissioned a new Scooby Doo movie to kind of return to the roots of what made the franchise great. This is why this film is so great, because it did that and more. Like, it wasn't supposed to be this great, but it really was.
Your,
There's a lot of great behind the
your
scenes. So
expectations were
like
low and they
the
cleared
plot
it excellently.
was taken from like an unfinished. What do you mean?
Sorry, your expectations were low and
Could
they
you repeat
cleared
that
it.
real quick?
Oh, sorry, your expectations were low and they cleared it very well. Right? You didn't
Well, I
expect it to
mean,
be
I
good
was
and it was
young,
way
so I
better.
didn't.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, this is a film. When you watch it later as older, you're like, "Wow, this is even better than I remember it." And then you kind of research into what came behind this film and all stuff, and you're like, "Wow, this film is like this is better than it should have been," but it was amazing.
It's like going
And
back and rewatching something like Aladdin and like, getting the adult jokes, when you're an adult and like, oh shit, that's pretty funny.
yeah, and it was like marketed as like a new movie too. Like, I think you could watch some old commercials of this advertising. It was on NASCAR cars. There was a paint scheme for it. It was on cereal. It was. You almost thought like, is this getting
Was
like a
the NASCAR
theatrical?
painted like the Mystery Machine?
Well, yeah, or that, or there was also like a Scooby Doo on, like it was an advertisement for the movie on the NASCAR stock car as well. And this was back when NASCAR was really, quite a more regionalized sport, and it was not, well, turning its back on its audience and becoming less and less, you know, becoming more and more
Woke.
convoluted with its. I mean, God, I know this is not a stream to complain about the current state of NASCAR, so I'll leave it
Well,
at that.
I know what you mean. It was a different time for NASCAR.
Yeah,
They
it was
liked their
honestly
they
one of the
liked.
best.
It seemed like they liked their audience a lot more back then. I guess you could say.
Yeah, and still, you had Dale Earnhardt Sr., which there will never ever be another person like Dale Earnhardt Sr. Another driver,
Uh,
and
who is Dale Earnhardt?
oh, he's basically, I would consider him probably an American hero, an American icon, and especially with there's a great Emperor Lemon video by him on his, like, there will never ever be another X series, and it'll be on Dale Earnhardt, and you're like,
Isn't
the
there a
the
Dale
amount of.
Earnhardt Jr. as well?
Well, yeah, that's his son. Dale Earnhardt Sr., sadly, like 22 years ago, passed away in a crash, um, during the Daytona 500.
That's the big race, right?
Yeah, the starting one that happens in Daytona Beach.
But it's like the Kentucky Derby of NASCAR, I think, right? Like it's like the big race.
Mm, I mean, yeah, it's the most iconic because that's when the sport kind of got started on. It on like the sandy shores of the Daytona Beach.
Is that Florida?
Yes, and well, I mean, it also kind of had its roots in the bootlegging of moonshine and other sort of alcoholic beverages during Prohibition, and people started tuning out their cars so they could outrun the police.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and people
No.
started to say, "Wait a minute, let's have a sport where we like tune our cars, and have like an unofficial rule set, have like honor rules and stuff." And then they started turning it into a track, and it
It
was
feels
mostly.
that feels very American, by the way. The concept for NASCAR, like, well, what do? We make our car go fast. Well, really fast, and
Yeah,
then
it
we try
was
to make the.
it was localized in the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, was really prominent in those was like the starting area of NASCAR.
Yeah.
And well, to get back on track, so the big thing with Zombie Island is, I think, well, I mean, it's been 25 years since the movie came out. It was also well timed. They released it. It was actually like being a kid. It was actually part of a marathon of Scooby Doo. Like you would see all like the series. You would see like the movies that led up to it, and then on Halloween night, it would premiere on Cartoon Network. I mean, it was already released on VHS a month prior, but like if you didn't get it, they would broadcast it on Cartoon Network in 1998, and it was a smash hit. Like it was
Direct to
very
video,
highly,
right?
yeah. The VHS sales were good. Critics liked it. It was a bold attempt. Kids and adults both enjoyed it for what it did, and I like and appreciate it too for a period piece of like its portrayal of Louisiana, the bayou, the unique settings, the people it's showcased, and it's one of the four Mook Animation Studio movies. Are you familiar with
Mook.
that company?
I'm not aware of Mook.
Mook Anime. Well, they're the ones. They're a Japanese animation company. A lot of thing is a lot of '90s cartoons we like. They actually were
Actually, wait.
contracted
Hold on,
out.
hold on. Before you continue, I gotta make sure my voice meter isn't crashing. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's good. It was not responding. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was like this was the one of the major companies. Many of our '90s cartoons we enjoyed as a kid. A lot of the animation was contracted out to studios in South Korea or Japan to do. And Mook was they did four of them. They did a commission. So they did this. They did Zombie Island, which is Ghost, Alien Invaders, and the Cyber Chase. Like in 4 months, 4 years for four movies. And I in my article, I explained the details, the background, the voice actors, the plot, some of the notable screenshots. And one of the best is like, you have people like voice actors that you probably know. Like some of them, the only person who returned and still is the voice of Fred is uh let me look it up. Frank Welker. He's still Fred Jones. He still is to this day, even in, I don't know how he's pretty old, but he still can do the voice. But everyone else was kind of rotated out.
Did
Like
they hire
Scott,
him for Velma?
I think they did, or maybe
And
they didn't. I think someone else did it. I don't know. I don't want to linger too much on that train wreck of a show.
yeah, let's keep it positive.
Yeah, but yeah, like you had radio personality Scott Innes, who became Scooby Doo. This was Billy West's only time playing Shaggy. He would go on to
Billy
be,
West is Fry from Futurama, right?
yes. There was Mary Kay Bergman as Daphne Blake. And also you have some notable like voice actors from the early '90s shows like Batman the Animated Series, like Tara Strong, Andriane Barbau, Jim Cummings, Mark Hamill, and they were actually playing. And the best thing is that like Jim Cummings, he actually does a Cajun accent correctly. Like he is one of the few people who was able to pull it off consistently, and he had experience because when he was a boy, he would work on the Mississippi River as like when they were along the bayous when like steamers would come up and down giving tours of the area. I almost want to. I've never been on one myself, but I'm more than tempted to just check it out. You ever taken a riverboat or like a steamboat anywhere it goes?
Honestly, the only riverboat I've ever been on is the one at Disneyland. So no, I've never been
Yeah,
on like
well,
an
I
actual river.
mean,
I've been on houseboats before, but not like down rivers.
yeah, it's a unique thing. I mean, I haven't been myself. I mean, yeah. Yeah, we've all had that sort of similar experience when we're like on a roller coaster or like a ride, but like to actually experience the nature and to see like the various parts like of the Mississippi River and various like that's a unique experience that I feel like we should experience once before our lives are done. So Jim Cummings was able to relate to that. And so the big twist is that it also it evolves the characters of the Scooby Gang and it complements them, and as well as it kind of fixes some of the flaws that they had. Like, I mean, some of them didn't really have much. Like Scooby and Shaggy are basically the same because their characters are basically
They're pretty
are
static.
well, well, I mean, they're written enough. They're good already. Like now, so there has been some experimenting. Scooby sometimes leads the pack. Shaggy has that meme where he's like, Ultra Instinct Shaggy. Have you seen that ghost?
I have. I've seen some of it. I mean, I get it, because like Goku's basically like just oblivious to everything, but can block anything or dodge anything.
Yeah, Shaggy. Even like I actually saw like a Mortal
You,
Kombat, one of the Mortal
you want
Kombat
to know an
animated.
interesting thing? My grandmother painted paintings for decades, right? Probably 30 to 50 years of paintings. She has
Huh.
a painting of a dude with shaggy hair and a green T-shirt, like a big full portrait of a dude in a green T-shirt. And I was just like, that's Shaggy from Scooby Doo.
Uh, and just what a coincidence. Do you think maybe that's like maybe she was intending for something else, but like, hey, hey, I
No, I think she was
recognize
just
that.
painting a model wearing a green shirt. It looked exactly like Shaggy from Scooby Doo.
Yeah. And funny thing is, so the best thing in like this movie, we see the characters are all back together. There's like a little homage. Like the first couple of minutes, it feels like a classic Scooby Doo episode that's going on, and then it cuts to like years later. All the characters are like adults now, and they have their own thing. Daphne is basically doing what you're doing right now, but on a syndicated network. She has her own talk show. She's giving interviews and all that, and Fred's the
Famous for
producer.
being hot, or is she actually? Why does she have a talk show?
It's just one of the careers that this is like if this happens sometime after they talk because what she's doing, she's describing like their last Scooby Doo hoax they uncovered, which was a guy, in a monster, it's the same thing. The realtor scaring off buyers of the castle to make sure nobody he wants to keep the value of the property artificially high, So I was like thinking, man, is this guy's is, like does this guy work at like the Federal Reserve when it comes to manipulating rates or something?
Two.
Uh, maybe that's a joke's a little too close to home given what's going on right now. But yeah, so she gets on, and so there's some other. This is another funny kind of thing that does. So Scooby Doo and Shaggy, they're working airport security, and they see Daphne on the show, and they're like, man, wish I could meet up again sometime with the old gang. And there's a gag where like the job is like they're sniffing out contraband like food that's not allowed on the airport. And like, and of course, they end up eating through the contraband and getting fired.
Yep.
And I figured, like, yeah, that's why these guys can't hold out a job. And like, we had this joke before. Dang it, this was pre 9/11 as well. So some of these airport like gags they did, and some of the things like, man, oh, this,
Yeah, they'll get you tackled, or worse.
yeah, and yes, and Scooby's antics of like barking and trying to sniff out would not be well liked. I mean, airport security would definitely be much, much different.
Yeah.
And
I wish we had old airport security.
yeah, I mean, I could see. I don't mind improvements, but yeah, like the a lot of the stuff that we do for travel really doesn't make us safer. It's just more inconvenience. But I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
again, requires
yeah,
a lot
no,
of
they
cultural.
every time they test TSA, every time they, go see, oh, how effective are they, right? Every single time, it's always, yeah, we snuck like 20 guns past them. We snuck like, a bunch of liquid and like a shoe. It's like you're all fucked.
Yeah,
You have no security, but you have all of the inconvenience.
right. And okay, so back to the movie. So Fred calls them all up, and they meet up. And they surprise Daphne for her birthday. With her van rebranded as the Mystery Machine, and they decide to say, "Hey, for your show, let's kind of bring back. Let's like investigate all these alleged hauntings." And they go to Louisiana, which is even today is infamous for like having like the most amount of haunted locations.
I have
Then they
seen
find
True
out.
Detective season 1.
One of my friends keeps talking about it, and he says like the second season is the best. But
Friend is
I don't
wrong,
know. I
but
haven't seen the show.
your friend is wrong. I think the second season is better than most people think it is, but no, it is definitely not better. Matthew McConaughey is a charisma machine, and Woody Harrelson is very good as a conflicted character. You know, like it's the duo of them is so much better, so
Mm-hmm.
ridiculously better. But yeah, no. Have you seen True Detective season 1?
No,
Yellen?
but from all the people that say it's a good show, I'll have to check it out sometime.
I would highly recommend it. I mean, it really shows you, like, it gives you a really in-depth look into like that region itself, and it tells a very compelling story, which is why when you get to like the thirds, I mean, none of the seasons of True Detective are connected, right? Each one's kind of like its own self-contained story, disconnected from the prior ones. Like when you get to the third one, and the plot of the third one is basically the reverse of the first one in like what the big, what's going on, but it's just so much more compelling in that first one. Yeah. I would highly recommend it. I honestly recommend watching all of it, but at least watch season 1. Season 1's excellent. Like I don't know, season 2 is just not compelling for me because it's like I live close enough to those areas to know those areas, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is like LA adjacent, California, whatever. Season 1, it's like all this like dilapidated, like abandoned places in like Louisiana and all this swampland. It's really cool to see all of it in motion.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to see that because so one of the things I talk about near the end is that far from being seen, portraying the Southern United States and the Southern culture as like the evil twin or the people that like are the butt of many jokes. No, they're given a less, given more fair shake this time around. And like I
I, I
referenced
I mean, there's a lot of. It's not like, oh, this is all positive like depiction of of the rural Louisiana. I wouldn't say it's like I wouldn't say it's like like, oh, these are all a bunch of evil hicks, but like there are people, there's brothels, there's like there's
it's New Orleans.
violent gangs and shit. Like it's not. I wouldn't say it's a very positive portrayal of Louisiana. It's a complex look, but it's not like, I wouldn't say it's a positive portrayal of that region.
I mean, well, I would say more realistic. And the same goes for Scooby Doo.
More nuance for sure.
In Zombie Island, they get to see Louis the Bayous. They visit New Orleans back before all the problems, but pre Katrina New Orleans as well. Another thing that sadly is something I feel like just never comes back. But I digress. And I remember there was like a screenshot. There was like a viral like a few months ago where there was so towards the end, like you see like one of the weirdest things is you see like the ghost of a Confederate officer saluting Scooby Doo, and they point out like, this is a bit of an curious oddity. Like Indian Bronson pointed this out, was like, there's a lot of Civil War ghosts from this Confederate side in Scooby Doo and Zom, and most of the time they're very friendly or they're stern, where they play the part as ghosts or monsters, and they actually warning off the mystery gang from like genuine danger, which in the movie they do one of them in places they're exploring.
But Yellow Lantern, ghosts.
Yeah, well, that's actually something true. Like, so the big tagline for Zombie Island was like, "This time the monsters are real." Now, this is not really true in the sense that like paranormal and real supernatural phenomenon has been encountered with Scooby-Doo in the past, but it was never really like, it was very inconsistent. Like sometimes it would be a real monster or ghost they
And then it was
off.
always
Sometimes
Old Man Jenkins.
yeah, it would be very inconsistent. And fans were not really that accepting of the idea because it was never really executed well in the past. And the real stuff doesn't come until the second half of the film, where a bit of things. So like they go to like 4 alleged haunted sites, but they turn out to all be hoaxes or fake. And then they get like an invitation to visit a island called Moonscar Island in the Bayou area, where you know. So there's 2 ladies, Lena Dupree, Simone Lenoir, as well as with their boat ferryman Jacques. And keep in mind these are French Creole-inspired names in the Arcadia region of Louisiana, which is honestly a treat. Many people really don't do a lot of exploration of Cajun culture, of the Creoles, of the French-inspired portion of Louisiana, which is always it's always a great thing to see. So they get there. She says the island is haunted by the ghosts of a pirate named Morgan Moonscar, and the same thing happens. Allegedly, I point out there's sightings, and it turns out these were actual ghosts. But the point being is that they were warning them. It seemed like they were coming off as threats. The ghost of Morgan Moonscar writes, "Get out, then beware," on like the wall of the kitchen inside the mansion that on the island. Another like later that night, Scooby Doo and Shaggy see the ghost of a Confederate soldier named Jackson Pettigrew come out of the mirror, warning him to get away. They find out his name because his stuff, the mirror, belonged to him. But I think the thing is like, the thing people see the most is that the zombies are real. But the twist is that the zombies, the monsters, are actually not the villains. They're the victims of a curse that was put on by the 3 people that inhabited the island. You following along, Ghost?
Yep. Yep. The real villain was the one who made them zombies.
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't for like they wouldn't. So yeah, they're basically werecats. So remember in the article I said like this movie was based on like an unfinished scripts and drafts from a '90s cartoon called SWAT Cats.
I remember SWAT Cats.
Yeah,
I do. Didn't they fly
plot of
around in
this-
jets?
yeah. The plot of this movie borrows heavily from like scripts because the writers worked. Some of the writers worked on that show, and so they pulled in some extra material. And this is like a kind of a dark backstory. So I mean, I'm not spoiling anything. The film's over 25 years old, but like, it turns out Lena, Simone, and Jacques are over 200 years old at least. They had been actually luring people to the island
To take their
where they
youth,
would
to get their
no, they
adrenochrome.
literally kill them. They take their souls, they steal their life force to remain eternally young, and they're actually werecats. And they do this every harvest moon. Every full moon is basically that.
Otherwise, they fade to dust, right?
Yeah, and it turns out that they played to this because in the late 18th century, there were settlers on the island, but they worshipped some kind of weird voodoo magic cult where they worshipped like a cat being or deity. And on the island, Morgan Moonscar and his pirates attacked and raided the island, killing many of the settlers and driving the rest into the bayou, where they were eaten alive by alligators. And you're like thinking, we're pretty sure this is still a kids movie, right? I mean, they don't show it, but like it's implied. And so
Bad things happen.
Yeah, stuff happens.
Off-screen violence.
Yeah, and what ends up happening is they ended up asking this deity for help or prayers, and their request was granted. They ended up turning into the werecat forms, and they got retaliation, and they killed Morgan Moonscar and his pirates and stole their life force. They realized this curse would let them there, and so in order to keep their forms intact, they would have to lure more people to the island. And the worst thing is like, okay, well, the pirates probably deserved to get that kind of retribution considering what they did. But people had argued like they ended up killing more and more innocent victims that had nothing to do with what the pirates did. This is why you see people from like there. You see like soldiers from the War of Secession. You see Union and Confederate troops who were drained. They were turned into zombies. Tourists, people from the steamboat, like all various forms of people who were just unlucky enough to get stuck on the island. And it's did you say something?
Nope. I was confirming. Yep, that kept happening.
Yeah, and you're talking about these are the first time like the villains in Scooby Doo, like they're not just harmless people in a mask wearing. These are like legitimate supernatural and they've have like a huge body count. Hundreds, if not thousands, of people lost their lives to these people, and the thing, of course, the big climactic battle is that they ended up with some assistance from the zombies as well as the usual Scooby-Doo antics. They run out the clock and they make enough time pass so where the souls of the werecats do not drain the life force, and they crumble to dust in a very family unfriendly way. And the zombies also are laid to rest because their souls can finally be freed of the curse and pass on to the afterlife. And that's where that screenshot of the soldier Jackson Pettigrew saluting Scooby-Doo comes from, because he's like thanks, he's kind of the representative like of the zombies, where he like says thank you. And a little freeze frame bonus is that like he was actually one of the zombies that actually came to the aid of Scooby and Shaggy when they were captured by the werecats. Him and a few other soldiers, like they lunged on them in zombie form to get them off, and one of them even caught Scooby-Doo and Shaggy when they were flung up into the air. So like there's actually kind of a hint like during the iconic "It's Terror Time Again" chase sequence. Some people notice like none of the zombies actually go out of their way to try to hurt any of the mystery gang. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Ghost, like it's sort of like a subtle clue you pick up on, and like, wait a minute, like none of these people, none of the zombies, despite their shambling, scary
but the
appearance, none of
cultural
them are
zeitgeist of zombies themselves is that zombies are mindless machines of harm.
right. They're like, and like I said, this movie was also before the zombie fade in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Before that came, but like the thing with this is like, the thing that the zombies were somewhat self-aware of their curse, but since they couldn't communicate or very well or have stuff, they're only mentioned they were trying to legitimately scare them off the island before they could become another victim of Jacques Simone and Lenoir's like life force draining scheme. Um,
I
and
see.
it's Yeah, it's so like, and it's like they're self-aware, like they know that they're cursed and zombies, but like they're not able to like properly communicate
Oh,
to them.
and to
And
answer
it's a case
chat,
of like,
the werecats were originally conceived of as villains for a abandoned Thundercats script, and they repurposed it for Scooby Doo on Zombie Island, right?
SWAT cats, not
SWAT cats, sorry,
that was
SWAT, not Thundercats is Lion-O and them. SWAT cats.
yes. And yeah, I think the episode, the unfinished draft, was called like the Curse of Cataluna, which involved a similar type of like curse. And the
Was it
bird
from
so
Catalonia?
I know that's the first thing that came to my mind, because yeah, like Catalonia, it's the resemblance is quite is very suspiciously similar. The But I think the best is like, it holds up. And because of this, there were 4 follow-ups to this type style of movie were commissioned by Mook, and they're good as well. I mean, like Witch's Ghost was up and it changed the setting to New England. It did a lot of historical things and introduced the Hex Girls. You had Tim Curry voicing the
Wait, was that
one
really
of
the
the one of the
first
bad
time
guys. I
they
mean,
had the Hex
Tim
Girls?
Curry voicing the villain. Yeah, the Witch's Ghost introduced them. And because they stuck around for quite a bit as well.
That later on.
Yeah, they showed up in other movies. They showed up in other shows as well as part. And I just learned this recently. They were actually going to get their own sort of movie as well, but it was one of the projects that was cut when David Zaslav took over Warner Brothers and started clearing house.
But Velma wasn't cut.
No, I wish. Yeah, I think it was already commissioned before. I mean, well, the Velma show is not under It was commissioned by HBO Max. They got the rights to it to do it,
But
and it
that's
was
Warner
separate from like
Brothers.
what. Yeah, like it was a project agreed in advance before David Zaslav was able to cut it.
I
And
know, but so was the
like
Hex
I don't
Girls one, right?
yeah, that Hex Girls was the one that was cut. And funny thing you mentioned is that there was an entire Scooby Doo episode that was unaired, an entire Scooby Doo movie that was unaired that was just leaked online on archive.org. It's a Scooby Doo. It's this movie's called Scooby Doo and Crypto 2,
Oh,
where yeah, the gang heads to Metropolis to investigate what happened to the Justice League, and they get some help from Crypto, Superman's dog.
huh.
Yeah, I know. I saw some of it too, and saw some clips, and you're like, wow, it's a fully completed movie. Like this is not like unfinished. It's like completed. It's fully complete. Animation's done, voice acting's done. It's the stories, and it was just basically unreleased. Like it was written off as a loss. Like it's the same with that Batgirl movie. It's like, oh, well, we feel like it's going to operate at a loss if we release it, and we're going to cut some things. So like, let's just write it off for tax purposes and just never release it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of that. There was a lot of fat to trim.
Yep.
The Hex Girls movie was a victim of that, unfortunately.
Yeah. But I mean, it's unfortunate, but I can see why they had to cut. They were, Warner Brothers was trimming out. They were going to say like, all right, we kind of screwed up our ability to make. We failed to replicate Marvel's cinematic universe with our superhero films, and we ran into diminishing returns. Might as well just like cut our losses and do a reboot, and then try to continue setting trying to they're trying to course correct. Gosh, I
Well,
remember.
yes.
I still remember
Course
how
correction
bad.
goes so wrong sometimes, doesn't it?
I still remember just how bad Superman versus Batman v Superman was. It was. Oh, God.
The criminal part about it all is that there's a very, 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 very good Superman versus Batman comic that is very well received, very well liked, and could have very easily, in the time frame, used Christian Bale. Like, you could have very easily had it follow on from Dark Knight Rises, do Dark Knight Returns, have Christian Bale be older and retired, bring him back in the series. You could have very, very easily done that and made a very compelling movie and fit it into the DC universe. But that's not what they did.
Nope. And it's just such a it's such a what could have been.
Yeah. And honestly, if they had done Dark Knight Returns, I think Zack Snyder would have been the right director for it.
Yeah,
I,
they
I
already
know that
did.
sounds crazy.
They did an animated adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns as well.
I've heard mixed things about it. It's a hard adaptation to do.
Very, yeah. I mean,
It's challenging material, to adapt. Kind of
yeah,
like Watchmen was, and I think Zack Snyder actually nailed Watchmen. That's why I
No.
think if he had done like a 1-to-1 adaptation of Dark Knight Returns like he did Watchmen, I think it would have been an excellent film. And we would look at it kind of like we look at Joker now or other one-shots that went well from DC. But instead, what we got was like we had Zack Snyder work on half of it, then they got Joss Whedon, then the studio, took a butcher's axe to it, a butcher's cleaver to it, and then that's what we got. We got this weird Frankenstein child of it all, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can't just like run through the oh, we're gonna do Batman Superman first encounter, then we're gonna get Wonder Woman, and then we're gonna uh
Well, no, they tried to run before they walked. It's like, oh yeah, and then Wonder Woman shows up. It's like, wait, whoa, 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 and then Aquaman's already here. We don't know why Aquaman's here.
Your universe is shit when Aquaman had the best movie.
okay, well,
I liked
let's
Aquaman,
be
actually.
fair. Aquaman is a great
That's
character.
what
I
I'm
mean,
saying. That's what I'm saying.
Is
If
he,
Aquaman
though?
was the best movie,
Like,
I don't
okay, yeah,
know.
Super Friends. The Super Friends is, it's not a good. The Super Friends made like the butt of all jokes, but like, but it's, uh, it's still not that bad of a. It's the okay. Well, I'm losing my train of thought. Yeah, Aquaman is a great, yeah, he's the butt of many jokes, and this
No
is
idea,
despite
Snorlax.
this is despite the fact that he's been recasted as like a more serious superhero. He's had great comics and great
The
stories, but like
Golden
people are
Age
just gonna,
Aquaman is very campy.
yeah, they're gonna get like the concept is camp, despite the fact that despite all the great stuff and attempts to make him more serious. He's always going to be known by that Super Friends cartoon show for where he was the butt of many jokes. Where
Well, he's more so known just by other shows using him as the butt of jokes. I mean, like, it is kind of ridiculous. You think about it. Like, what's your power? I talk to fish and swim really fast. It's like, well, Superman can move through time and he can move through space at any speed
Yeah.
and survive the vacuum of space. So I think we've got our underwater guy.
yeah, and the idea, oh, his powers are so useless. Like, what does he do on land when he's not in the water? But
I mean, he's got
they,
super strength, right? Because he's part Atlantean or whatever.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he
Well, and
actually,
then they the parody of he could summon a sea monster. Yeah, summon a sea monster. Doesn't do it, and when he does, it just destroys the town.
Is there a sea monster that's stronger than a Kryptonian? Is there a sea monster stronger than an Amazonian? Is there a sea monster that's more useful than Batman? Is there a sea monster that has wings and can fly?
I
Like,
mean, yeah, it's always been like it's been he's hard to conceptualize as having like useful powers compared to the other, but he has like the talent. I don't think he's that much of a laughing stock anymore, considering like what Jason Momoa did with his character.
I mean, do you really want to tell a fucking Samoan, hey, your movie sucks?
is he Samoan? I don't
Jason
actually
Momoa's Samoan, dude.
is. I thought The Rock was. Snorlax
The
says
Rock
that
is
you are
Samoan
beautiful,
too.
Yellow Lantern. I don't know what that means, but take it as you will.
Wait,
Uh,
what did you say?
Snorlax says you are beautiful. I don't know why. I assume he's an AI bot someone has put on my channel, but because he says
Are we
that to
are we
everyone.
chat GPTing this shit now? Chat
I,
GPT
I, I
now
don't
for you?
know. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah,
confused more than anything.
yeah.
But no, Jason.
I'll,
I actually like Jason Momoa. Did either of you see the new Dune movie? Sorry, tangent, but
I have not.
okay.
No, but I
Jason
heard of
Momoa
it.
plays
It's pretty
Duncan
good.
Idaho.
Okay.
He plays Duncan Idaho, who's kind of like the action hero character of Dune, and he's excellent in it. I like him. He was great as Khal Drogo. I've yet to find like a Jason Momoa role where I've been like, you're the wrong guy for this. It is funny though that he basically plays like he plays the Game of Thrones Mongolian, and it's like it still works.
Yeah. Apologies on me late, guys. I thought dinner was only going to take like 30 minutes, about to be an hour, because fuck my waiter.
Ah, I see. No problem, man. Okay. Where were we? Sorry, off track.
Well, I mentioned that there was um I mentioned the canceled movies. One of them included a Hex Girls feature length film, an unreleased Scooby Doo film was actually just leaked out to the public on it was on archive.org.
Live action
And
or
Then we
animated?
had almost. I think it's live. Was it animated? I think you're right.
yeah, it was called Scooby Doo and Crypto 2.
Yeah.
Crypto
Instead,
2.
we get Velma season 2 instead. So
They're making a
fuck.
season 2 of Velma.
Yes.
Well,
Listen, I don't want to be, I don't want to I don't want to spill my venom on that show or waste time in it. And I just figured, I'll let you, I'll let what my friend said about it, who did, because, one of my colleagues I know, his fiance, like, is a Scooby Doo fan, and always watches every like first um like the new thing of like every Scooby Doo show that gets released, and he saw it and it was not well liked. Like he said, like some of his comments is like it's not only is it just bad and all the sort of stuff, but like it's also like intentionally ugly. You know, the type thing. Graphic imagery that's just violent for the sake of violent, the shock value. You know, not the nudity that's just nauseating to just think about, and just the meta commentary and
I'm
personalities
sending
they
you a meme about artists from different countries.
what artists from different countries.
Just look at the picture. You'll understand. Effectively, each one of those is the actual artist for the series on the left.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the self inserts sort of kind of, but like
Yeah.
It,
I mean,
you know what's funny? Velma is so bad that my ex, who's Asian, loves Scooby Doo and everything, was like, I'm even offended that they turned Velma Asian for no reason, and that this show
because she's
exists.
Indian.
yeah.
Why would Mindy Kaling, an Indian woman, make her character Indian? It's not like she's making it a self-insert for herself. Why would she do that?
Yeah.
It's not like she lacks so much writing talent that the only way she could conceive of understanding this character is through the lens of being someone looks the exact same as her and also thinks the exact same as her. That would be ridiculous. Obviously,
Right,
someone that's
man.
made as much money as her has much more talented writing than that, right?
I mean, she likes to hook up with coworkers against her will.
Wait, what? Mindy
But we don't
Kaling?
Mindy Kaling is infamous in Hollywood for hooking up with male coworkers against their will, like on set.
How does a woman hook up with a male coworker against their will? Is it just inappropriate touching?
It's in the scene. In like the scene, she purposely writes out scenes with coworkers she wants to hook up with.
Okay.
So I
like
can't remember
then we
which
do the sex
actor
scene
was
with this
it.
coworker, right? That
Yeah,
what she does?
I can't remember which actor. Yeah, I can't remember which actor legitimately had it was like, no, I am not like making out with you on camera, or like we're not doing a sex. And she was like, please do it. And then like I think one of them, he admits like I basically was made out with her against my will.
I mean, that's pretty low to do to someone that you hold power over. Isn't that the whole? You're not supposed to do that, man. That's she has undue power over your ability in livelihood, right?
I mean, who knows? I mean,
Someone
I
in
mean, there's a
chat
part
wants
of
to
me
know
like,
Yellow
I'm
Lantern's
not.
favorite anime, and would Kill la Kill be accurate?
Well, it's not my favorite, not my favorite anime. I mean, I watched it. I mean, see, there's a difference between there's being over the top intentionally and being, taking motifs
And then
from
there's
traditional.
Trigger.
Yeah, I mean, Studio Trigger, they're known for
Yeah.
creating this type of verbose and very in-your-face type of shows. But I mean,
have you ever seen the 2 Studio Trigger Star Wars episodes that they did for Star Wars Visions?
I've seen clips of them.
Oh, it's great. I love the twins. The twins.
Twins
great.
is just great, ridiculous, and absolutely over the top. And the other one is like a
And,
completely different style. Those are the
Yeah,
rabbit
the
girl.
elder is. Yeah.
Was it the
but
elder? Did
I
they
didn't
do
like
the
the
elder?
rabbit girl so much. They
I
did
thought
the
that
elder.
one
It was
was
the elder and
interesting.
the twin.
Oh, you're right. It was the elder. Yeah, the elder is like a completely
Yeah.
different one too. Like it's actually kind of like a serious like like very serious like character story between 2 characters. So they've got range as well.
Yeah, and also I'm gonna admit the bunny one's probably the worst one out of all the visions.
No,
I think.
I would say the band one is the worst one.
I like the band one though. I unironically like the band.
Okay, I disagree. That was my least favorite of them. Honestly, they're all pretty good, but I would say the
Yeah,
band one to me was.
Yeah,
I think my favorite, the one I've seen, the one with the Ronin. Like they interpret the Jedi and the Sith as like
Oh,
different
the one they
Ronins.
do all the like the black and white
that one was
yeah.
good. The first one.
The way, and then the
Yeah.
lightsabers are the only colors you see. Oh, that one's excellent.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, maybe I do. Maybe I did hate the bunny one because I watched that one on acid. So that might make a lot of sense.
Remember, kids, don't do drugs. Okay, your brain is still developing. Please don't do drugs. But back to
Hey,
it. Yeah,
I did
I like the
LSD when I'm 26. My brain is fully developed.
It is, but even then, consume in moderation, and I would still advise not to do drugs, even once your brain's fully developed. But you know, you do you.
Yeah, psychedelics are strong.
Oh yeah, yeah. Remember, if you do
So
what is it,
highly
ecstasy?
strong.
If you do ecstasy and have sex, it can ruin sex for you forever. Allegedly.
Really?
That's yeah. You never heard that? You never heard that?
Know that.
Yeah, I've heard that. That
I've
there are
actually never
people
done
that like
ecstasy, so-
they like people like erectile dysfunction and other consequences of having sexual interactions on psychotropics and psychedelics. So beware.
Oh shoot, that was on my list of things to do.
Well, I'm just telling you what I've heard from people that have most definitely consumed these psychotropic substances. So
Well, is Molly considered psychedelic? I thought it was a stimulant.
possibly,
But
I'm not sure.
also, for those of you who are amiibo collectors, real quick, the Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask amiibos are getting restocked. So if you're looking for that
Geeky's-
one on your collection, and you don't want to pay
Geeky, of
like,
course, the king of the Funko Pop.
hey, I switched to amiibos. Funko Pops are dead. They're going into a landfill.
Listen, you can just go to. By the way, you can go to Etsy. By the way, and people will sell you the cards with the code. So don't. The advice is don't spend a ton on them. If you just want the data. There are ways.
Yeah. Well, the amiibo, you don't need the code for it.
Well, remember they have
Are you talking-
scanner things in them.
Well, you're talking about the cards, though, if you need the code.
Well, you need to scan something, and there are people that sell just the code. They copy the amiibo code and put it onto just a card and sell it for really cheap.
Oh, I didn't know
Remember.
that.
Yep. Oh yeah, you can go to Etsy. There's a lot of Etsy sellers that do that. So if you want what the amiibo provides, look up Etsy sellers amiibo cards because they'll have them.
Yeah, good to know. I wish I knew that when I was playing Animal Crossing more.
Yeah. If you like the figures, get the figures. But if you just want the content, there are other ways.
But here at Coast to Ghost, to not condone or advise or sponsor any illegal activities that might get us sued by Nintendo. We love Daddy Nintendo.
And not even in Minecraft or as a satire or parody or in Roblox.
Yes,
All of the above, right?
We here at the Coast
Because
to
apparently
Ghost
that's not enough of a
Corporation-
legal defense, so we will compound our.
Yes. We here at the Coast to Ghost franchise love and believe in buying everything ethically and
Legally.
sustainably.
Your game should come into your PC legally, okay?
Yeah. We here love physical media and we, if you still feel like you do not believe us, feel free to pay Ghost $10 a month so he can continue his gaming habits and make his.
Oh, Ghost doesn't need their money to continue gaming. You don't have to ask that. But obviously, feel free to support the channel on Patreon. But I'll do this regardless.
Yeah.
But yes, so where were we? We're a bit off track. Favorite anime, Yellow Lantern.
Actually, I can't really form this opinion because I haven't watched enough to get a.
I think you
I feel like
can.
you need to watch like a minimum amount to sort, because like every new one is like, oh, that's my favorite. Then you watch a new one, oh, that's my new favorite. But I have
Well, you
watched
have
some
to.
classic shows. I mean, I remember, uh, what's one of the classic stories? Man, I can't think. Spirited Away. That was like one of the first feature-length anime movies I
The
watched when I was a
Miyazaki
kid.
films are pretty great. Mononoke, of course, is my favorite. Yeah, no, there's a lot of really good Miyazaki films, and Spirited Away is one often
Good.
cited as favorites. A lot of other people, more modern, are saying like Howl's Moving Castle. But no, Spirited Away I think is a very good little film.
Spirit Away is pretty good. I do like Princess Momonosuke. I think Momonosuke is my favorite. I have not seen Totoro yet. I think Kiki's Delivery Service is
Well,
overrated.
you've never seen Totoro.
I have not. Hey, well,
Man,
let me turn in my weed card real quick. I didn't watch my first
just
Miyazaki
lost your
film.
weebay privileges.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't watch my first Miyazaki film until I started dating an Asian, and that was only 3 years, like 2 years ago.
Let's see. So you're saying she indoctrinated you into that culture of being cultured. What a touching
Ironically
tale.
enough, I was watching more anime than her. Though she never saw Dragon Ball until she met me.
Well, I mean, geeky as a Hispanic, I mean, isn't that just like required reading? I don't think I've ever met a Hispanic person that's remotely nerdy that hasn't seen Dragon Ball. It's just like, Goku Vegeta? Hey!
How do you know? How do you know a Hispanic has watched Dragon Ball when their email has Goku in it in some form, or they have a Goku background photo?
Oh, yeah. You, sir, are a weeb of the highest order.
Have you seen any other animes? Knights of the Zodiac. Oh wow, you really are Mexican.
I mean, I
Knights
think I
is-
should indulge in some classic ones. Legend of the Star.
Legend
I
of the
heard,
Galactic Heroes is very
Yeah.
well respected, very serious subject matter, dark material, kind of a very, mature look at intergalactic politics and backstabbing.
I think I would say. Have you seen Akira? I feel like you might like that one. Yellow Lantern. Akira.
Yeah.
Which one?
Akira. I cannot pronounce it. Akira.
A-R-I-A? Akira.
No. Akira.
Oh,
Yeah.
Akira. Akira, the biking one.
Yes.
Okay. I like Akira. Oh, I thought you were saying like the car. An Acura.
That's
New from Honda, the the Acura. Yeah, Akira. That's a well-respected classic. That's the one with the guy whose like head is exploding. What's that one again? That's oh my gosh. Not Akira. But no, Akira, very, very well liked. Red Line's another one that's considered classic. Can't remember what it is. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be a bad idea to go check out a bunch of classics.
Yeah. I mean, we have different ways of you watching it. I mean, there's
Well, yeah. So
Crunchyroll.
chat, to answer your question, Yellow Lantern's answer would probably be TBD.
Yeah, I need to
Does not
watch.
feel he can
more.
make a judgment with his limited experience viewing anime.
Yeah, like
so what we need to
I'm
do
not-
is
like,
get
I'm
him a
not-
Crunchyroll account.
I'm not a person who's watched like so many. Like I'm not a regular watcher to say. I spend a lot of time just playing a game, playing chess, reading a book. I don't really watch movies and TV shows anymore. I mean, I could try, but I just I feel like it's it, for the enjoyment. I'll try to like get it in. There's a lot of shows who are just adaptations of mangas or stories. Some of the adaptations are good. Sometimes they miss the mark. Have you ever watched like bad adaptations of shows, Ghost?
Adaptations, they're the actual adaptation itself by the studio usually pretty solid. Localization is usually where you run into the worst offenders.
But
Um,
but you have some where like if they're making the show during the same time as the manga, the deviations get pretty bad sometimes.
well, yeah, there is. People complain quite profusely about it's so much filler. What are we all wasting our time for? There's a lot of that goes on, and there are some.
But even like not filler though, because I I think the best example would be O3, Full Metal Alchemist, and Soul Eater. You could tell
Well,
when you
like
read
Soul Eater, basically. Like, what did they change in Soul Eater? Because I'm not a. I'll out myself. I'm not a very big manga reader.
So Soul Eater's ending changes completely in the animes in the manga.
But did they
As
change it
in,
just to wrap up the series where it was, rather than continue?
so in the end they do beat the Kishin no matter what, but it's the termination of the final boss is different from the manga to the show. I believe in the manga.
But is it different in kind of like how the Watchmen ending is like superficially different, but not actually different?
It's superficially different because in Soul Eater, Soul actually becomes a death site.
Mm-hmm.
I see,
And,
but they kind of still resolve. Is it still resolved the same way?
Not really, because do you care if I spoil? Oh, I haven't spoiled it. Death Soul becomes a Death Scythe, and Lord Death dies in the manga. So
Oh, that's a big deal.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's a lot more death in Soul Eater in the manga.
Aye, that there is. Lots of shows do that. We have to tailor things down. Although in a show literally dealing with the, literal incarnation of death, it's kind of surprising there isn't more death, right?
Yeah, which is honestly why I've decided that my standards for the Uzumaki anime is really low. If it ever comes out.
Well, yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't aware. I mean, I had watched the original Soul Eater when it came out, and I was kind of just like, yeah, that was fine, By the way, I felt about like stuff like Blue Exorcist and other things. It was just kind of like, it's okay. Not like, wow, I hope to see way more of that. It's just like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine, shonen fare,
Right. It's also like why everyone understands. Like, I mean, it's kind of like with me. Like, I never got into Faith Zero or Faith whatever, or Sword Art Online.
Fate Stay Night and all that. I mean, no one in America or the collective West, was a visual novel player except for a very niche segment of the population, of like Japanophile weebs. So it's like, outside of them, they had Fate Stay Night, which I don't remember where it aired. It might have been like Sci-Fi. It might have been like subtitle, like it might have just been like part of the subtitled anime internet phenomenon, but like, there wasn't like a mass adoption for that, until later when Fate Zero came out. That they actually properly marketed to the West, and that took on a whole life of its own.
Is that the one with the fire openings, or is that Faith Stays Night?
Maybe.
I just remember one of them is famous for their openings more than the anime. I think you're right on how you said it.
Might be Fate Zero. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure if it's Fate Zero or Fate Stay Night, because there are actually 2 different Fate Stay Nights that cover 2. Actually, technically, there's 3 Fate Stay Nights, each covering a different route from the visual novel. Now, there was the one that released either late 90s, early 2000s, the one that released 2010s, and then the movie that covered the 3rd route, which was released a couple years back. But I don't know if it's one of those. I'm not sure. I am not aware. I think pretty much he agrees. He thinks that, Snorlax. I'm pretty sure. Yellow Lantern is pro-Russia, so I would think he has that opinion. So.
Take the more stance of, I think the United States.
No, I
I
would
think
definitely
it's
say
working.
you're pro-Russia. 100% your position. They're an
I
Orthodox
don't think
Christian nation. You are 100% pro-Russian. Like, they are culturally your people. I mean, you're Slavic. You're Eastern European. Like, why would you not
well,
support them?
I'm closer to the Southern European. I mean, I know there's a lot of people would say, "Oh, aren't modern Greeks all just a bunch of Slavic people?" They push back on that. It's like you never want to give like the funny thing about Turks is like you never want to give them DNA test results because despite speaking a Turkic language or the one of the brand, they're most of them aren't. I'd say it's like a 75% Southern European, Anatolian, and like maybe 25% Turkish, as a Turkic peoples from like the Central Asia.
What's wrong
I
with
would
being
say
Southern
it's
European is what I'm wondering.
broadly speaking, Southern and Eastern European as well as the
I mean, like, the Greeks and the Romans, like, the Italians have, like, a massively long cultural history. Like, there's, they've entire civilizations historically. I mean, what's the shame of being, Greek? Besides modern Greek. Right? Like, what's so bad about being a Greek besides, how the Greeks manage themselves today?
well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting I mean, the history of Greece. I mean, I could get into so much, not just from the ancient, but like well as like the formation of like the modern Greek nation from like under Turkish rule and how like it was probably like the first example of like the self-determination, the early like 19th century nationalism of like how like the house it was it's actually interesting the last king of Greece, the last crown who reigned, he passed away like about a month ago, and he was the
Deposed?
yeah, he was essentially deposed, and there was like a military junta that took over in the late 60s, early 70s. And honestly, there's a lot of people who miss the monarchy, and it was like the house, the Greek royal house. Let me look it up real quick. The Greek royal house, the
House.
house of Glücksburg. Yeah, it's a Danish, um, it's a Danish, it's a branch of the Danish royal family. And what's interesting, the current his Pavlos, he's the crown prince of Greece and prince of Denmark.
Oh yeah, because all the royal families are connected and interlinked.
Hmm. He's not really he's not like he's not based on succession. He's not like if the monarchy was still in a force. I mean, Greece was a monarchy until 1973, when first became an independent nation in 1821. Now, sometimes it was a republic, and then sometimes it was a monarchy, but it's been basically a republic since the 70s. And it was interesting, his heir, his heir will be actually his heir to the throne would be 25. The heir to the throne under the guy I just mentioned, his name is Prince Constantine Alexios of Greece and Denmark. So it's kind of a weird thing, and There are some interesting branches, like there is um I think the King of Spain has some claim, like some sort of, because he yeah, like he married like one of the daughters of the Greek royal family.
But yeah, I mean that's what royals do. Like they intermarry and interbreed. I mean, like that's how.
Well, but these people were not like the House of Bourbon. Like that's a separate royal line. House of Bourbon is the current ruling ruler of Spain. Like the House of Habsburgs, I don't think they've ruled anything since the Austrian-Hungarian Empire collapsed. Which
Habsburgs are the people that have all the weird genetic mutations, right?
some did, but the main
From
branch
years
that
of interbreeding, right?
yeah yeah, House, because they married even with the German House Hohenzollern, which was the Kingdom of Prussia's main, and then became the German Empire. I mean, you want to talk about states that are there, like, Prussia is like the only country and state that was effectively banned from existence, which is
Which
crazy
country?
to think. Yeah, like it was banned. It was literally proclaimed to be like a criminal,
No,
because they
which
said
country again?
Prussia, the state of
Prussia.
Prussia.
Yes. Sorry. This Prussia doesn't exist anymore, right?
No, its territories were sold off to the Poland, to the Soviet Union, and others. I mean, the town of Kunsberg became Kaliningrad. It's
Where?
that little segment of Russia that exists like on the bolts between
Oh,
Lithuania.
right. You're talking about the part. It's in it's literally on the Baltic Sea, right? It's a Russian territory in.
Yeah, it was given to Russia, and like the upper half of it was given to the Russian Federation, or the Russian Socialist Soviet Republic.
The
Or no,
USSR for those of us
no,
who were.
no, no, I get the name wrong. This Russian Soviet Federal Socialist Republic. All right, that's kind of hard to remember.
Well, but isn't the acronym for that USSR and it translates differently? I think.
Well, no, that was the Union name, but like the actual country of Russia was called the RSFSR,
Russian
which is the
Socialist
Russian,
Federation Republic or whatever.
yeah, the Russian Soviet Federal Socialist Republic.
That's
Or
a
like,
mouthful. Why is
yeah.
the acronym in English though?
Well, it's actually the same in Russian. It's the same like sounding letters. RSFSR. It's the same thing. It's just spelled differently, of course, but because Soviet Union is CCCCR, or we would see it as like CCCCP, whereas they would say it's SSSR for short.
We have the CCP today too.
Yeah, there's but there was also the yeah. So it's interesting, the history. Prussia was like a fief, started out as like a fiefdom under the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. And then it grew over time. It was like one of the biggest players too in European affairs when the Holy Roman Empire collapsed. Too, it was the Kingdom of Prussia, which took the northern parts of Germany. And it's kind of weird. Like when you looked at like the Polish election in 2015 and candidates, you could see like the remnants where like the old German Empire and like Prussian state was, based on like the election results. Where like the guy who won, Duda, I think President Duda, I think Duda, I think, I don't know what his name is.
Yeah. Which is funny
he
because
won.
like Duda always sounds like Camptown ladies sing that song Duda Duda. That's all I can think of when I hear that politician's name is Duda. But yeah, I think it's Duda. Oh, to answer your question, Snorlax, I have no idea about casualties in the war. I don't have any on-the-ground reporting, and I would say mistrust any information that comes out about casualties or what's going on in the war, because every side has incentive to, say what they want to hear.
And I stopped giving a shit.
There's no reason for there's literally no reason for honest reporting on what's going on in the war. So That's how I would approach any information about casualties or figures.
And to be honest, I don't give two shits about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care, honestly. I don't care how many Russians and Ukrainians die as long as they figure this out without launching nukes or, shooting down each other's jets in the U.S.
Or sending down $1.5 billion.
Yeah, I would like my country to stop paying into this. It's like, I'm not getting anything out of this, so I'm good. We can. I'm canceling my subscription to Ukraine Russia Plus. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm canceling this streaming service, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say mistrust everything that you hear.
Yeah. I mean, it'll probably be a while before anything.
We'll probably figure out the actual casualties like 100 years from now, or maybe 20 years from now, or whatever. It's like China. What are the official casualty rates of people during the Cultural Revolution? How many people were buried in open ditches? Like we're not gonna know it for a long time. That's my prediction.
Yeah. I mean, hell, we're not even gonna know the COVID numbers for at least another 100 years.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna need a serious audit of the COVID numbers too. That's one that's gonna be hard to measure, isn't it? That's gonna be rough to figure out.
I mean, we'll never.
Lantern, do you think the Ukraine-Russia war is gonna be over in the summer?
No, I don't think so. Neither side will. Neither side thinks that, both sides see the other one as acting in bad faith and not going to follow up on any promises. Apparently, I know China, after reaching out to.
Well, they came up with their little peace accord, right? They submitted oh, you guys should do this, this, and this, and this, and then it's over, right?
Mm,
Understanding that the the Russian Federation is not Saudi Arabia or Iran or they have a big boy military and enough nukes to destroy China to not care what they think. They can economically, they have enough oil to sell in this market to not have to care what the Chinese think. And the Chinese are in a complicated place because they can't officially support Ukrainian separatism to Russia because of their own separatists in Taiwan. That puts them in a complicated place where it's we have to respect internationally agreed upon borders, but at the same time, we also have to support Russia because we're trying to take them into our sphere of influence and make them a client state to us. So they're in a complicated place. Overall, I would say China is winning the Russia-Ukraine war, though, if anyone. I'd say they're the biggest benefactor of this situation. But what do you think,
Right.
Lantern? Not over in the summer?
No, I think you'll see the same type of. I think you'll see the beginnings of the consolidation of the Donbass front with the
Kind of
fall of
basically the Crimeaization of those places?
Well,
So
I
they're
mean,
going to
Donetsk and
de-Ukrainify them?
Well, Donetsk and Lugansk have been trying to break away from Ukraine for at least almost a decade.
Yeah, they're
And-
going to formalize their de-Ukrainification, right?
Well, the funny part is that had this war not occurred, or the Maidan coup d'état, there was already a soft Ukrainization going on in these areas.
It makes sense. They want to keep their territory. They would like to. You don't ever want to hand it away if you don't have to.
Yeah, but
that's their tax
chances
cattle
of
and
ever-
livestock there.
the chance of
There's
the
lots of
Donetsk-
other stuff.
the chance of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporozhye, Kherson, and Crimea ever going back to Ukraine are pretty null at this point. Neither one will get, from both what has happened, not just what happened prior to the start of the Second Donbass War, but just in general what is the power politics. Because it's for one case, we see that the Ukrainian government essentially became vassalized by the EU, by America, and they were basically doing their bidding.
I think most people would argue
Well,
that Petro
doing
Poroshenko was a
things
vassal
like
of Russia before that, so it's basically they switched masters, right?
Yeah.
no, Petro Poroshenko was
So
the
he was an
person who
independent
replaced
thinker, but Yanukovych. Oh, sorry. Who was it that was replaced? Was it Poroshenko or Yanukovych?
Yanukovych was replaced, and
Sorry,
see,
most
what
people would argue that
Yanukovych tried to
Yanukovych,
be-
right, was a vassal of Russia, right?
Well, he was trying to pull off what Lukashenko used to do, where he would actually play both sides. He would get favors depending on the situation. Believe it or not, like there's been times, people like to think Lukashenko is firmly in Russia's camp, but there were places in the past where he would actually go challenge Russia, and he would have and Belarus had quite a lot of leverage. Believe it or not, there was the milk wars. In 2019, for example, Lukashenko was actually trying to become more independent, become friendly with the EU, friend with the US. Of course, that changed in 2020, but so Yanukovych actually
I
tried
wonder what
to capture-
changed in 2020.
Well, obviously,
Yeah.
the funny thing is Belarus said no to the lockdowns. They refused. They said this will kill your economy. This will ruin stuff, and these measures are they're balderdash essentially. Like a lot of the
Well, yeah, I mean,
you know.
the point is not to, the point of the lockdowns is not about stopping the spread of COVID. Like, we all know that now, and we've known that pretty much since the beginning. That's never been what the lockdowns were about. Like, I don't think that's an uncontroversial opinion, right? Like, the lockdowns were never about, reducing deaths and slowing the spread. Snorlax, Yellow Lantern already answered the question that he does not think the war will be over in the summer. Like, that was his first answer. He said the sides don't have any reason to. Like, you can ask the question again, but, he'll probably give you the same answer. Has your answer changed since then, Yellow Lantern?
No.
Okay. I was just making sure. Like, maybe it did. I'm just checking. Did your answer change in the interceding 10 minutes? Yeah, no, I agree with Yellow Lantern on that. I don't think the conflict is going to end in the summer.
Yeah, I did see. I saw. Yeah, there was a good stream by a colleague, Charlemagne, with another. They talked about.
I'm sorry, Charlemagne, like the historical leader, Charlemagne.
Or the rapper.
No, he's a former I still don't know if he calls himself a neo-reactionary, the NRX type. He did videos on Mitch Smolbug's various essays from unqualified reservations, as well as the other forms of neo-reactionary thing, like Spandrel's essay on bio-Leninism and some of the the IQ shredders, and he did some things for videos on Julius Evola and Thomas Carlyle, thinkers that inspired people like Curtis Yarvin. I think I'm actually going to reference him because I just published my Substack. I mentioned that there's going to be a piece. I'm going to explain some of the concepts that they come across in some of the terms. One of the
I
examples.
think that would be valuable for people to have.
Yeah, for example, people have been getting up in arms. What is the definition of woke or wokeness?
Well, they were trying to. I saw some people were trying to claim, oh, there's an epic own. They can't even define it.
Yeah, this was. I remember Nightmare Vision made a good tweet about this.
We also have a question out of left field as well. It says, how did Greeks beat Germans in World War II? I'm not too familiar with the Southern familiar, or what happened in Italy or Greece or in the Mediterranean.
Well, the Greeks actually did hold the line against the Italians for a little bit, but apparently when the Germans helped, they could have actually kept the line stable, but unfortunately, I think the Greek commanders, they pushed too far up on the offensive, and when the Bulgarians joined in, yeah, it was pretty much over.
So wait, the Bulgarians were allies in the Second World War, I think?
No, they started off aligned with the Axis powers.
But they changed sides.
Well, yeah, once they got invaded.
Wow. That's usually a good reason to change sides, I would say.
Yeah, but they're the only country in instance where they on the losing side of a conflict, but they still gained more territory as a result.
because they bailed him out at the last minute.
Yeah, kind of.
Lucky Greeks, eh?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the whole thing is like, Nightmare Vision made a point. I think he did on a recent Restoring Order episode with Patrick Casey and Geo. But like what they do is they like
Yo,
to
dude.
play a game. Well, they try to play this game where like the left they feign, they piled on Bethany Mandel for trying to come up with the definition that's but like what they do is they're trying to they pile on this mass coordination. They feign distance. They try to pretend that like, oh, how dare you notice that there are things that have radically changed in American culture. You're not supposed to know. Nothing's fine. You're just overreacting. And you point all these examples where like, no, like things are not fine. Things have been, accelerating. Things have become drastically different than America even 10 years ago.
Yeah, no,
It's
I guess. So but you're saying that they're constantly changing the definition as well, and that's a feature, not a bug of the system, is what you're arguing?
Well, so I think what it's kind of it's like a Monson Bailey, and also what they do is, like he said, they're taking away the ability for someone to categorize or to give like a proper definition, because what they do is they keep on
You're saying they're
changing
defining acceptable boundaries of conversation, trying to control the conversation. More or less.
Like, it's like it's what he says, like these are the types of groups they'll attack you for like pretending to uphold like a boogeyman or like a status quo that doesn't exist anymore. They like the economy's crap. This is why we need communism now. But then when you point out the problem,
we crashed this by overmanaging this. We can fix it by overmanaging this, right?
that's what they want. Like, they don't want to.
If it was just us in charge, we would make it work. If we had just let Obamacare reach its critical mass, it would have totally worked. But it's your fault it didn't work. It wasn't doomed to fail. It wasn't overmanaged nonsense that was never going to work. No. It would have just worked if you had just let us fully implement it. Right? Like that wasn't real Obamacare, okay? Real Obamacare would work. Stuff like that. That kind of like undisprovable logic. It's like, oh, well, you can't disprove it wouldn't work because you tried to do this to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
You're guilty of everything. Everything is perfect except for what you did. You ruined whatever was going to work. It seems.
Yeah. Well, it's like, they don't want to give the game away that they've been in charge for a very long time, and rather than admit that what they've worked on fails or stuff, they'll just pretend that they're still fighting. They're fighting the man. They're the underdog. They're the one who's gonna fight the power.
We're
give it
being
to the
ground
system.
underfoot. There's not massive banks and corporations all backing us with their own money, resources, and time. No. We're being defeated. We're being defeated handily in this. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah, and my definition. So to put it out like this, so I believe that what woke is stuff. It is a holistic reaction. It is the holistic phase turn of holistic, or I say the holistic phase shift of the leftism, the American in the 21st century that has. It is both a coping mechanism and because they realize that many of the post-1960s revolutions, as well as their laws and stuff, have not produced the outcomes they've wanted. And so rather than saying that something else could be at the play for why, for example, disparities continue to exist persistently between different ethnic and racial groups,
you're saying they will deny reality.
Yeah, they'll keep
deny
on
reality, then accept that their god failed, basically.
Well, it's not even that. It's like they'll deny the reality. They'll pounce on people that they'll pounce on people
it's
for
it's the totalitarian urge, right, to control the conversation and to decide what is and isn't acceptable or proper discourse, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's from the that was from like the episode he described, and he said it's like Geo defined it as like a series of motifs and attitudes that have come to define, the American progressivism of the 21st century.
I
And I
wouldn't
would
say it's
say
as
it's also.
narrow as American progressivism. I think it's more like a collective Western progressivism. But go on.
Hmm. It is, and I would also say that a lot of the things is a result of civil rights law as well.
Yeah, civil rights law is absolutely one of the many nails in the coffin of the American Constitution in destruction of its ability to,
Well, even then, like,
limit the power of government.
many of the beliefs the woke have are written in the laws themselves as well. The anti-discrimination things, the disparate impact,
Yeah,
the
anti-freedom of association. Basically laws banning free expression or
and they also
association.
there's also like the sense of like hyper awareness where they're like, it's like that chart from like Always Sunny in Philadelphia where the guy has the chart where he's like the conspiracy that like all these things are somehow connected.
Charlie,
They're.
right? The guy who's playing Luigi. He's like, it's all coming back to this.
Yeah, it's like they have to keep on coming up with more and more ridiculous sounding justifications and all these
Well,
ad hoc
there's like
reasons.
old like tales, right, where it's like the kid tells this lie, and then he's got to tell an even more elaborate lie to cover the last lie he did, right? Like it just keeps adding up and adding up, and it's like, well, no, hold on. And I think Medicare has a great example of this when he talked about when he got in trouble for smoking weed, and he was like, oh, I got hit in the eye with an acorn. Then why are both your eyes red? Oh, there were two acorns. It was twice. It's like that's kind of what they're doing. It's like, oh, hey, this kid's got a penis. Yeah. Well, okay, but listen, you may think that's how you define male, but here's what's really going on. It's not. It doesn't matter. What the biology says. What matters is what they think. It's kind of just
Yeah,
like
and
moving the goalpost constantly, right, and changing.
yeah,
Like, changing the
they have to
metrics
get
by
more.
what you do.
It has to be more convoluted reasons for like why are certain disparities still happening in demographic sense, and he also points out like it's like
Well, this is actually an interesting question as well, but I'll ask it after. Go ahead. Keep me to you.
yeah, like I found this like some good examples as well from like these you see like they explain themselves, and we're about like 50 years from um we're like 50 years from like removed from the Greg versus the Duke Power Company, which established the doctrine of disparate impact, which is I think probably the most powerful weapon for like what has done the social engineering.
And what did the desperate impact decision decide?
Well, disparate impact was it's the idea that even if you don't intentionally try to discriminate, if the results of what you were doing lead to different outcomes,
Then the
well
court can
then
read your mind and render a verdict that you're violating the civil rights law.
kind of like that. It's like it relies
Basically
on so
saying
many.
that the court has the right to interpret what you're doing, rather than prove it through facts and data.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Very dangerous road to go down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thought, it naturally
like,
rolls to thought policing and other.
It
things
also,
most people
I would
agree are
argue
not
that
good.
this helped create the overproduction of elites. Like, why are colleges the way they are? Because most companies suddenly they were not allowed to give IQ tests anymore because, like I said, it would show a disparity
Well, it's
between the
getting
different.
more convoluted than that. They're not even allowed to do proxy IQ tests anymore.
No, and like some
We have to
example
adjust
like
test scores. We have to, no, hold on. We can't, we can't judge you by the quality of your work. We have to judge you by the, what the value it is of putting you here versus putting someone else here, rather than, oh, you're the most qualified
several
student.
judicial courts too. Like there are many laws that do not just the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Acts, the Gregg versus Duke Power Company, Brown versus the Board of Education, Shelley versus Kramer, United States
What
versus
you're
Stanley.
building to is that this entire framework and movement of, goalposts and, changing the rules at every end, this amalgamation of efforts together combined is what you would define as wokeness or woke.
Hmm.
Like that is you would say it's the woke agenda. It's wokeness at work,
Well,
right?
it is. It is the it's just what it is the strong. I mean, it comes legally speaking from the strong implementation of civil rights law and the revolutionary spirit that continues post 1960s, where like I think Dave the Distributist made a good point where it's like, okay, we understand that we took away that we have a group of people who are essentially second class citizens. They don't have many dignity. They have been aggrieved and wronged in the past. So we'll try to restore this by trying to raise them up to
And
the level.
I don't really disagree that they've been aggrieved and wronged in the past, but I don't think that I don't think that's unique. I think
I know,
many
it's
many such groups of people have been aggrieved and wronged in the past.
Mhm.
And if even if you agree that they've been aggrieved and wronged in the past, the effort to redress those grievances should be more directly upon the direct beneficiaries of that system rather than the a single ethnic group or composition of people. It should be like, well, this family owned slaves, therefore if you sought reparations from anyone, why would you seek it from some sharecropper that never owned a slave or never, like why would you seek it from the descendant of, someone who has no connection to that system? It's like if you would, you
Yeah,
would
it's
target,
like
you would target it specifically to the people who benefited from it. And I don't even think you should do that. I don't, it's like, no, we're that, it's not a wise way to build your society around grievance and retribution. It's not, it's toxic, it's cancerous.
You open you actually low key open a slippery slope with that because look at San Francisco.
I mean,
No, you
proposing-
don't low key open a slippery slope. You absolutely open a very slippery and complicated slope.
Hey, and honestly, if the San Francisco thing goes through, where they're going to start giving black people $5 million, you will. I cannot wait for a bunch of Hispanics to realize, like, wait, you're giving black people $5 million in California. Where's our 7?
Well,
Like,
yeah. I mean, yes, it's not a it's not a good road to go down, because what I've been aggrieved, especially the interesting thing when you two are talking about they are allowed to claim and title you as they wish. If you deny that title, you'll be the one denying them. Wait, if you want to know something concerning about what you two are talking about, they are allowed to claim and title you as they wish. If you deny them the title, you will be the one denying them. It gets interesting. Yeah, I think the more interesting part is, if they do put the reparations thing through, like, what percentage qualifies? Like, what if someone's like, got one piece of sub-Saharan African heritage that's 1%? Like,
I think
what
they're still trying to work
what
out
if they
the kinks of
arrived from
that,
South
but-
Africa, 10 years ago? Like, what like that's my interesting. And what are we gonna do, DNA tests to like distribute these reparations? Like, what's the methodology? What do you think they're gonna do, Geeky? There's gonna be some massive like system of like, oh, we gotta confirm, that you're actually who you say you are, or they're gonna be like Rachel Dolezal's running around going like, oh no, I'm totally
I don't know.
what I claim to be.
I mean, Gavin Newsom signed a commission to get this all taken care of, but I don't know. It's called trust the system, but like I said, if black people want $5 million, Hispanics want 10, and Asians are going to want 7 because the Chinese weren't treated pretty well in Cali. They were probably treated worse than black people in San Francisco.
The whole thing is it's a mess and a clusterfuck, and it will lead to very harmful consequences.
Yeah. Also, isn't California like tens of billions of dollars in debt?
Well, let me California actually is fiscally doing pretty well. And the reason, like cis white male is a title. Yeah, no, you have a point about that. California is actually financially pretty well off, and that's specifically because they have a disproportionate amount of like tech company revenue, and housing markets are inflated, so people pay, even with Proposition 8, still pay high property taxes. Like, at the end of the day, California has a ton of natural resources and is a destination for the world. So like, tourism, it's a massive hub of tourism. Like California has like a god tier civilization spawn that even in spite of all the efforts it takes to ruin itself, it is still succeeding quite well. But
Even though 2 banks just collapsed under their watch.
yes, yes, and specifically located in California. And on top of that, on paper, their unfunded liabilities will eventually choke and, drown their entire economy. So it's like, oh yeah, see, we have we showed a paper positive. It's like, yeah, but you guys owe way too much money. Like California pension systems are going to drain the whole system, and you're gonna have social unrest if you try to take away those. Like it'll be disastrous. Like absolutely disastrous. But no, on paper, yeah, they put forward positive tax receipts even after they spent billions and billions of dollars. But basically, Silicon Valley carries the whole state. I mean, there's the whole media empire of Disney that helps carry the state. They've got an entire massive offshore and onshore drilling industry that carries the state. Like California has everything going for it, except its leadership.
And its demographics.
The demographics, I mean, like,
No,
California's
you
demographics
cannot-
are
you
being
can-
favorably diluted by high intelligence
You
workers
cannot
from East
blame the
Asia and
Hispanics for that
India.
one.
India
didn't
and
burn
high
down the
intelligence people
states.
that
That
are
was
being
the black
substituted
people. Shut
for
up.
leaving. They're being substituted for people leaving the state. So they are kind of
Yeah.
replenishing their population with high IQ populations as well. So that's not as much a factor in it as well. You could say
Yeah,
there's
besides-
low social cohesion and low other factors of societal trust as well. But they're high recipients of H-1B visas that also, once again, pump up share values and stock prices of these tech companies that lead to higher tax receipts because they're able to outsource high-paying American jobs to foreigners to reduce their costs overall and turn in higher profits, which means they pay a higher tax to the state, which the tax turns in higher revenue. The state pays out lower services to those high IQ replacement population they bring in. So they're bringing in more and they're paying out less, at least in the short term. In the long term, their children will probably use more from the system. But on paper, it looks good in the immediate, but there are long-term consequences to this. But right now, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
look, we don't have to pay, pensions out for these workers. They're not paying into Social Security because they're not Americans. Like, there's a whole bunch of factors in play, at least from the fiscal standpoint of those workers.
They're
as
too
well.
busy paying sales tax. That's where they're making their lost
I
revenue.
mean, sales
at.
tax is a thing, and it goes up to 11% or 12% depending on the jurisdiction. I mean, the California's income tax is pretty egregious. The 10% that's paid, and they took away SALT deductions in the tax reduction bill, which was I think a very smart move because it punished high tax states, and it rewarded low tax states, and it's like no, I think that was a smart move, but. At the end, it did. They still kept their high tax revenues as well. But yeah, that's what's happening in California. But yeah, now the FRC bank, that could be what the powder keg that ends the banking system right now. If that bank collapses, there is no bailout.
A lot of banks are getting hit because they were pro crypto as well. I saw some murmurs that
oh, you are absolutely
Well,
correct.
Silvergate,
about this.
Silvergate collapsed because of that, right?
Yeah, but crypto is being used as a scapegoat for just general bank. So what happened at the end, right? Every asset rose because of QE, right? You print endless money, money becomes less expensive, assets inflate and get more valuable. You do the opposite, money becomes more valuable, assets deflate in value. So crypto is basically the scapegoat because you got FTX, right? Tons and billions of dollars disappeared overnight. And you've got like this perfect villain for the system to offload all the sins of all crypto on. Like, oh look, all of crypto is Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX. And rather than admit that it was, banks being irresponsible with their balance sheets, being irresponsible with their investments, trusting Fed guidance when the Fed, it's like as soon as the Fed started raising rates, these banks should have sold all their treasury bonds. Like as soon as Jerome Powell announced, I'm going to start raising to deal with inflation. That should have been an immediate sign you need to rebalance your portfolio away from bonds into other assets because Holy shit, what are you doing sitting still while the only major factor that moves bond markets, like the number one, like 90% of the 90% of like all the influence to bond markets is the risk-free, the 10-year T-note, okay? And it's like that this is moving, and there's every indication this is going to move higher going forward, and you didn't rebalance your portfolio. You're an idiot and you deserve to lose your money. But because the government will not let the market fix the problem, they did not they were not punished for this. And yeah, they fired their management, but everyone got their money back at the expense of everyone else. So
Yep.
That's where we are in the banking system. But yeah, no, Silvergate's another example as well. You know, the FTX Alameda scandal, you know, that I mean, gosh. What do you call it when a guy pays $40 million to the people in charge of regulating his industry and then collapse his entire industry? You know, it's like, I don't know. Bribery, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened with Sam Bankman-Fried as well. Like, just a guy who he went from like, it's like, my God, it's like all these people featured on Forbes magazine have like some of the worst luck imaginable.
Theranos is my favorite. That's honestly my favorite. You know, it's just how it's just like she's the female Steve Jobs, guys. She is the chosen one. She will show us a great female CEO that will have the most successful company in the history of mankind. It's gonna be so great.
Isn't she going
She's
to
so
jail?
good. Her court case is ongoing. It's still in progress. But the latest progress that I recall is that basically she has some really incriminating text messages between her and the employee she was having an affair with. So, in layman's terms, she is fucked. That's there's no other way to put it, is that she is absolutely screwed, and it will take massive legal wizardry to not have her life just completely be ended.
Well,
But yes, Elizabeth Holmes and her fake blood test company is a perfect example of, yeah, it's a Sam Bankman-Fried type situation as well. Except Sam Bankman-Fried actually, the difference between them is that Sam Bankman-Fried's product worked at one point. And Elizabeth Holmes' product never worked.
No, she was a complete fraud as well. I mean, like,
she was 100% a fraud. She made it all up and convinced powerful, wealthy people like Warren Buffett, what's his name, General Mattis, and all kinds of what we call, I guess, political and financial influencers to back her and, like, you know, be like, oh yeah, she's got this great product. It's gonna be amazing. You're all gonna love it. It's gonna be revolutionary. It's gonna revolutionize medical testing completely. Just this most unbelievable claims, you know, which is, by the way, a pro tip: if you ever are investing in a company and they do all these things and it sounds unbelievable, probably isn't real. You know, once in a while, things actually work out, but in most cases, it's probably not real. It's just, you know, that's my advice. You know, when you hear this stuff, take it with a grain of salt. And oh yeah, sorry, that was the question. Before we get too off track, Snorlax asks, Yellow Lantern, what is your opinion on MGTOW? I believe it's the men going their own way thing. I guess the anti-starting a family and getting settled down because there are societal imbalances between men and women or something like that, right?
you know, I first heard about them, uh, um, so I think this is kind of a weird, because I kind of saw the evolution of the MGTOW types of people that kind of just sort of played like the prisoner's dilemma, defect against the feminists. Now, I don't recommend this. I don't think it's a good track anymore. I mean, I see the problem of, like, you know, men essentially being left behind by society, you know, the loss of traditional masculinity, the loss of what it defines to be a man today. But I think MGTOW goes a little too far in the other direction, reaction to like feminism and to the like longhouse.
Like third and second wave in particular, right? I mean, the idea
Well,
that like,
yeah. I mean, it's
they're
the
a weird
excesses of
oppressor
that,
oppressed relationship.
or
My
or what?
my opinion as well on MGTOW is I disagree with it. I think you should form families and have children because that's a fulfilling way to live your life. You know, to
Yeah.
have a family, and it's the most valuable thing you can do in your life is to raise kids and be a father. That's
Yes,
just my
and
personal
it shouldn't be a political like these should not. It shouldn't be seen as like a political act too.
Like I also on the other end of that, I don't think like, you know, taking yourself out of like constantly dating and like, you know, just trying to get like I don't think it's wrong to like reassess and like value yourself at all, you know, and like just figure out like what you want to do with your life. Like don't be consumed by, you know, your search for a family. You know, make sure you understand who you are first as a person as well. So that
Yeah.
you have a successful family. Like I don't think the idea of like, you know, and you know, and like, you know, I think like there's the more positive side of MGTOW is like, oh hey, you know, like yeah, we have activities with like our bros, you know, we do stuff with just like our guy friends. You know, I don't think that's bad as well at all either. That makes
Yeah.
sense. But sorry, continue your answer. I'm sorry, Lantern.
Like, you know, I can't, because like I said, I really don't have a solid definition because I really don't know too much about it, but I
I
just
feel
want
like
to
the
see what
solid
I've seen.
definition is that like this is it. I guess disconnecting from women over imbalances, and I don't know. To me, it, like the idea of like, oh, there's an imbalance in power between men and women sounds to me like Marxist mumbo jumbo, you know. So like, I don't really, you know, like follow that.
You know,
I'm not disagreeing that, you know, the courts treat them differently, but I don't think you should like form your entire life around that idea, right?
mm-hmm.
Like be a person, you know. There's more to you than just that, I guess. I don't know. You know, it's kind of my opinion on like, you know, pride and like sexuality. It's like, yeah, that's fine and all, but like I don't really care about that. Who are you? Who are you, you know? Is more important to me than what you are.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would say myself, I disagree with the tenets of MGTOW, I guess, as I understand it. And would you agree with that? You don't think men should disconnect from women, that we should like interact and talk with each other and work with each other?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not a very big fan of the antisocial or like this antinomial push. You know, if you know, MGTOW's a reaction is it's like it's a bad reaction to a bad social norm that has emerged in, you know, the blurring and distortion of men and women in society. Like it's, you know, I see
You're
the
saying
problems
like
of
women entering like the workforce has scales and, you know, kind of men are traditionally and biologically, you know, inclined towards, you know, being providers and, you know, take rock, hunt animal, feed children. Take that away from them, you know, we're still at our core animals driven by instinct, and you know, you put an animal in an unfamiliar environment, they might even die, you know, like you think about like, oh, you know, like the environment that they can't cope with, where they're stressed out all the time, where they're not mentally well, like it has negative consequences, right?
mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you and me may disagree on like the nature of man, you know, being an animal, or, you know, being, you know, believe that they're inspired divinely, right? They're in the image of God, etc. Me, you know, we're animals. We have instinct as well as our higher cognition as well. I mean, you can't deny it. But like, we both agree that like there are consequences to changing this paradigm, right?
Right, and I think there is a lot, like there is a way to fix this. I mean, the men the thing, you know, I feel like there's just not a very good healthy thing. Like,
But you would agree
know,
that MGTOW is not the answer to fixing this imbalance.
no, and neither is going the route of Andrew Tate, not doing any of that kind of stuff either.
I mean, besides the smoking cigars, what's wrong with being highly successful and being a Giga Chad?
Well, I feel like it's
Has he
the
won
wrong
his fights
idea
though,
for-
or no?
I don't actually know what's happening.
Hmm.
But so, well, I'm not too familiar with Andrew Tate. Like, could you explain to me what you would define as like Andrew Tate's ethos?
The same type of sleaze, the sleaziness, the pickup artistry, living life in the fast lane, nothing but. I mean, I haven't seen too much of his content, but what I've gathered from the information prior to this, like, of course I disavow any crime he's committed, real or
I
alleged.
mean,
as well.
obviously, right? You're not going to be like, well, yeah, even though, like, you wouldn't be like, oh, if he's human trafficked, I'm totally for that because, he's the Chad face. It's like, no. Yeah, obviously, doing horrible things to people is still doing horrible things to people, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you're gonna get much pushback on that. It's like, no, you totally fuck him right now. We all agree on that pretty much, right? But yeah, obviously we disavow any morally wrong and illegal behavior that he might have done overseas. But if he's innocent of what he's charged of, I disavow this weird persecution that's happening. I hedge my bets, okay?
I mean,
I'm old-fashioned.
well, the thing is, that's the whole thing about Andrew. If you've got connections and stuff, the rule number one is don't ever brag about them openly, because you never know when those things end up. People will turn on you, especially since
It's also
Romania.
disrespectful to the people you have connections to.
Yeah.
Name dropping
Bragging
them,
about
like-
how you're untouchable is frequently a way to tempt fate and immediately, like.
When a system craves legitimacy, hubristic people are the ones they like to punish.
Mm-hmm.
You heard he's human trafficking, but still not charged. Well, I mean, I feel like the human trafficking angle is like, I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know enough about the guy to feel whether I think he's innocent or guilty.
all I know is this. From what I heard, he's using Chris Brown's lawyer in the Rihanna case to bail him out of jail. So,
Chris Brown is who?
the one who beat up the Super Bowl singer, and the images ended up on TMZ, and it was like a really bad beat up.
Beyonce?
He beat up Rihanna.
Oh,
Rihanna. What did Rihanna sing?
Umbrella.
no. So, is he saying that the lawyer?
Oh,
for
wait.
Chris
Is Rihanna
Brown?
the one who did the Skyfall opening for James Bond?
No,
No,
that
that's
was
Adele.
Adele.
Okay. I just can't tell the difference. Okay, so it wasn't that one.
Ghost, I think you've probably made a lot of fans of both works pretty mad with that
I'm pretty
statement.
sure
I'm gonna
what
say
show
this
is
in the
this
most
one
legitimate
canceled?
way, and I don't mean to offend anyone that is neurodivergent or mentally unwell. I'm very literally retarded about music.
Well,
Like
I-
literally,
yeah.
not even like metaphor. No, I'm literally. My mental state about the knowledge of music is literally in a state of actual retardation. And I mean this in no way to be offensive. I think "Sympathy for the Devil" was written by the Beatles. Okay, like I
Ooh.
don't know
The
what I'm
good news
talking
is,
about.
there is an easy way to always look up what song. I mean, usually, sometimes you'll have uncredited stuff in songs like ghostwriters, different vocal. Speaking about music, I mean, I kind of made a tweet once when I'm like, a lot of music critics, like on YouTube and things, people who do like ranked pop songs, they kind of started to pop up around like 2012 to 2014. Did you
Well, I
notice
think
that?
like the
Ghost?
internet
Like,
commentary culture was kind of becoming a lot more mainstream in that time.
yeah,
In
I
general.
think like the most notable person was like one of the Channel Awesome acolytes, Todd in the Shadows. But he had
He's
been
an
because
acolyte. Was he? Because that's the what is it called? The nostalgia critic, I think. The one.
yeah,
video
before it
series
was
about?
called Before it was it was that guy with the glasses, the Legion of Super Critics, and then it became Channel Awesome. It was like a networking stuff. Like nowadays most people don't need to sign up to like student networks to do content creators. They can do it themselves. But back then, if you wanted to really strike it out big, you had to kind of form up with a network. And Channel
Kind of
Awesome
had to
is
be
kind
like
of a relic of
produced,
that.
right? Like in a more traditional sense.
Yeah,
You had to be a maker.
yeah.
Or Polaris.
The Polaris, the Legion, and
The
people would
Polaris, a
make.
car.
There were also a lot of and I feel like in another timeline where maybe the world was a better place or something, I probably would have jumped onto that bandwagon, and I would have probably had my own YouTube channel, my own stuff, as well as ranking pop songs, movies, and some of these things, because I'm a music guy. And I'll also point out, I would guess
You are a
probably the
talented
biggest.
musician, to the best of my knowledge, my limited knowledge of music.
Yeah.
That's not meant to be a slight. I mean, I think you're good at playing music. I've heard it.
Well, I
And
appreciate
you
it.
have a
I
good
mean,
singing
I'm a
voice.
little out of practice. I admit I'm rusty, but give me like a couple days of playing the piano or my instruments, about 3 or 4 hours, and I could start to sound like how I used to. It's all muscle memory, memorization, and the hand-eye coordination as well. But I think the
Describe
big
it like
thing.
a video game.
Well, I mean, even then,
I don't even know if that's
video
wrong. I'm not saying
change.
that's wrong by any stretch, but to me, it's what it sounds like. Just from the
Well, no,
untrained.
video games now change and become radically different. Whereas the piano it's the same instruments, the same keys. It'll always sound the same. Same with unless you intentionally modify it, which normally you shouldn't. But I digress. So I would imagine, for example, like one of the so you mentioned Chris Brown. I remember like a lot of music critics genuinely like almost across the board loathed Chris Brown, and I mean
Because he beat up
understand.
Rihanna.
This guy assaulted a woman, right?
Yeah.
More than that. I mean, even not just the incident with Rihanna. I mean, he's had repeated instances of legal stuff.
Is he
He's
kind of like an I think it was R. Kelly type figure?
No,
not.
R. Kelly's worse.
Yeah, R. Kelly's way. Believe it or not, there are way worse things, and there have been like Chris Brown has gotten into
With
trouble
Kelly,
for like
it was like
assault.
to underage girls too.
Yeah, R. Kelly's the underage one.
I think
And he's even
I think
caught on
largely
tape
Chris
peeing
Brown
on one.
I think Chris Brown has tried to. Well, I would say, most people still hate on him because they feel like he hasn't learned his lesson. But I think he's finally starting to get it. I mean, he's tried to stay. He's in recent years, he's more or less tried to stay out of legal problems, which, unfortunately, for
Usually
many,
a good thing to do.
I know, but a lot of people feel like Chris Brown has not truly earned forgiveness since it's one thing if you make one mistake and you're regretful of it and you try to make up for it and make amends, but it's another thing where you repeat several mistakes and you never really seem to get it why people don't like you. And Chris Brown kind of falls into that category at times. But I think for like music, I remember there was this one guy, Double Agent, he did like the top 15 worst Chris Brown songs back in 2016. And, a lot of the bio was the joke about him, Chris Brown beating up Rihanna he would use that as a reference, maybe a little too much, but it got the point across that, like, in the eyes of him and many music critics, Chris Brown has not earned any sort of forgiveness because he has not learned his lesson. And I mean,
Is this like what do you call it, like a Michael Jackson type thing, or like a O.J. Simpson
no.
type thing? Because I mean, my opinion, a lot like I, from the evidence I've seen, I don't think Michael Jackson is guilty. I think he's just a weirdo. But with like O.J., I think where he most people think he's guilty of a crime and he got away with it. So.
Well, I mean, this one was unambiguously, but it's like most people think
because
that
he was
like
convicted, right? Or he was sentenced for it.
No, O.J.
Michael
Simpson
Jackson?
was convicted for another
No,
crime.
this Chris Brown character.
Oh, Chris Brown has been. I remember, he
There was
has gone to
photographic
jail
evidence of
times.
him beating like like the after effects of him beating the woman.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so people reference the incident with Rihanna.
The incident is that like the what do you call it? The righteous protests in Tiananmen.
Uh,
Okay. All right, so he is dead guilty, according to
Yeah.
more than just public opinion.
Yeah, I mean he's been active for like, I mean Chris Brown. I mean he got started in 2005.
and
His debut single, and he has a long list of stuff. Whereas, yeah, the most people infamously famous is his domestic violence incident.
dressing up as Osama bin Laden on Halloween one time.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm gonna say? That is a good Halloween costume. He's a villain. I mean, he's. What the hell? You're telling me he dressed up as Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, his whole past, like they all
There
dress
is
up like.
there has been an interesting point is that recent times, I think I did look up some of the legal issues, unfortunately, and it shows that actually recently there has been attempts to kind of like incriminate Chris Brown for crimes that, believe it or not, he didn't commit. Where like there was like the standoff thing where he was falsely accused of assaulting someone, which he didn't. Tried to accuse her of. He was recently accused of sexual assault and rape, and then
Struggle snuggle, but yes.
yeah, which then he pointed out, he had the receipts. I'm like, no, I didn't do this. I have the text messages saying this relationship was fine. You come over, it was a consensual relationship. And I think that's the thing. Like, I mean, putting aside the legal, I think generally speaking, the
But-
music critics hate him because of the, people think his
But
music's
let's
not
be
very
honest.
good.
If he actually did do it to somebody, nobody would be surprised. Like that's not a messed up or controversial take.
I mean, it kind of is. I would say. I mean, like, look, what he did is true. It seems to be the case. The abusive aspect of it. It's like that's terrible, but that doesn't mean he's guilty of things he didn't do. I think there's still
Right.
we should still
kinda like
hold
Bill
we should
Cosby,
still
right?
we should still hold the system to account. We shouldn't be just we don't like X, therefore it's okay to like pile anything on. I think that's a dangerous road to go down, even for people that you find morally despicable and abhorrent.
No, but what I'm saying is if he was ever proven guilty of doing that, everybody would be
You
like,
say you wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Yeah, that's fair. I think that there's that connection that you abuse women in one aspect. Well, why is it such a stretch to abuse women in another aspect, right?
Right.
Right.
I can understand.
No, I think it's sort of a weird thing where, like, I would say, like, some people have said that maybe Brown's not that good of a singer. He's a good dancer, but, like, he's
Yeah.
not that good of a singer, it's actually funny, interesting that I remember 5 years ago, there was a very infamous, like, comedy song involving him and Little Dicky. You heard of this one?
Okay, that's a good song. That's a low key good song.
Okay,
Yeah,
what's
it's
little?
called
I
Freaking
feel like this
Friday.
is like a D's nuts joke, Little Dicky, but
Well,
I'll ask,
yeah, like
what's,
rappers.
what's Little Dicky?
basically, I think I just saw a commercial with him on March Madness. It was something like with Diet Pepsi or Diet Coke
March
commercial or something.
Madness, being the
College basketball.
college basketball tournament, right?
Yeah.
Snorlax is asking if you're familiar with something called extentation.
Extenuation.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's.
I heard about him too. He actually died like 5 years ago.
Wait,
But his
what?
music, yeah, he was another one of
He
these
got
SoundCloud
shot in his
rapper people.
where did he got shot in his own car, and his car was like a nice car too.
Yeah, I think he
And-
was. I think he was being carjacked, and it went wrong, and it killed him.
Yeah,
As
the
often
carjack.
happens in carjackings.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
also
like,
stole
never
his-
let people
his
think that
Gucci purse.
carjacking is
Yeah,
just.
it is not a harmless crime, and people die all the time in carjackings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember
He-
there was a photo of somebody, like, I saw, people are upset that a carjacker who was like barely a teenager was shot and killed by the driver. I'm like, well, back up the sec. Like, he was the owner he stole his car. The owner was trying to get his car back. The kid, I'm like, I'm not kidding. I think this guy was like a 14-year-old boy. He opened fire at the guy, and
Jeez.
the guy fired back and killed him. I'm like, in what situation is the car owner the bad guy? He's trying to get his
dude,
car
like
back.
do you know how many times that there's a story like that where it just goes wrong and people die?
Mhm.
Yeah, and
All
it's
the
not
frickin'
my
time.
Yeah, and honestly, I remember when this stuff like this came out, when Biden was coming out, it's like, why don't we just shoot him in the legs instead? I'm like, because
Just shoot someone in the leg, guys. You know, it's not tons of consequences for being shot by a bullet anywhere. Like, what
Yeah,
the-
Yeah.
plus, oh, you're not shooting to kill someone. Well, what if they shoot back at you and kill you because you decided not to? You decided to take, decide to spare your life. I mean,
Oh, hi, I'll shoot
like,
you with a
in what
rubber
situa-
bullet. Will you stop shooting back?
Yeah, and
And
we see
besides,
there
if
are
I
some
shoot,
people who just they're on drugs or they're on thing, like, they don't care that they're getting shot. They're still attacking you.
yeah, I mean, imagine if they're on PCP. Like James Brown literally drove through 2 states on a flat tire on PCP.
Wait,
Man.
what? How can you drive a car in 2 states on a flat tire? Like, I'm pretty sure the tire would have probably fallen off,
He
given like
didn't care. He was on PCP. He just
The-
kept driving.
Snorlax is asking if Mr. XXX Tentaction was a woman abuser.
Yes, he did beat up his pregnant girlfriend.
yeah, he
Oh
was a
my
horrible
gosh,
person.
that's
I think
terrible.
he was a horrible person, and he met a horrible fate too. Not that I would wish death on anybody.
You're not saying he deserved it, but it could. It's how do we put this delicately?
it
You're
was
not
karma.
gonna lose sleep over it, him dying.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
like I said. I'm regretful that maybe he could have turned his life. Maybe he didn't. He could have been remembered for something much better, and regretful of his.
Whoa,
past. But
I
no,
think, I think if he was still alive, people would still call him a woman beater because that was pretty bad. I think
mean,
because
yeah.
the way I guess because the way he did die, people forgot about it. As sad as that sounds.
And it didn't help that like his last song was called like something about like, oh, actually no, the song
He's saying
I-
about getting shot and killed a lot. He's saying about death a lot. And he's saying about.
I mean, there was even
Oh,
another
no.
rapper who
Oh,
like
come
had a song
on.
called "I've Got Murder on My Mind," where he ended up killing somebody. I'm not joking. You heard of that? You know what I mean?
I did not
Beater-
hear about this. A guy made a song called "Murder on His Mind" and then killed someone.
Yeah, it was literally the
Oh,
hook was
is he
"I've
the
got
one-
murder
is-
on
is-
my mind," and I'm like, buddy, you better
They
not kill anybody,
played
otherwise
his
that could be
music.
used in court against you.
And it was, right? It was actually used in court of law against him.
Yeah.
When you said "I've got murder on your mind," what the fuck did you mean, sir?
Your Honor,
you're going
my
to jail,
client-
but not for
my
the crime. You're
client
going to
simply
jail for
said
being
in
stupid.
Minecraft. Did you miss the part where he said he wanted to do this in this video game where you build stuff and you blow
Oh.
stuff up with TNT? You're not doing it in the real world. It's
Ghost, do you remember the snitching episode of the Boondocks?
Was that Gangsterlicious? I think.
Gangsta snitches on himself because he raps. He freestyles raps. Yes, that has become an unironic trait right now in the hip hop community. Like rappers are snitching about themselves killing people.
You know, as a professional, you should probably not admit to committing crimes. Well, for one, you shouldn't do crimes. But if you were to do crimes, you should not do. You should not admit to
You
them.
should not make a mixtape. and do
Yeah.
it.
yeah. Don't I mean, I've seen, it don't pull the OJ if I done it.
OJ, it's a little too believable when you say if I've done it.
Yeah. See, but it's not as funny though, because when rappers do it, you're like, wait,
I don't know.
what?
Killing people's not that funny, you know. It's like, wait, what, bruh?
No, or admitting to like doing drugs, like admitting to like, oh, I transported these amount of drugs or whatever. You know?
In my
Yeah.
asshole, I transported these many drugs. Okay, like, yeah, you probably shouldn't admit that, buddy.
But yeah,
Or it's just, like my favorite thing about it's like Little Wayne was guilty of this. Is like, Wayne, stop comparing yourself to shit. Stop it. Why you keep using? Why how many times have rappers compared themselves to human excrement? And just used it for like as a as both a verb, a noun, an adjective, an adverb, and a descriptor.
Yo, Mr. Yellow Lantern. I am literally the human excrement of the human excrement. I am the most human excrement of human excrements. I'm a real human excrement. Come on. Telling me that isn't, isn't competitive storytelling and narrative?
wait,
Or
Coach,
whatever.
you got to use the N word like 4 times.
Oh,
Whoa,
jeez.
whoa.
There
We
have been
this
songs
is
that have
this is a
been.
family show, a family program.
I mean, there's been songs that have cracked the top 40 and stuff, where like, yeah, they just say the word in the title
Over
or on
and
the end of each
over.
chorus, and I'm like, gosh, no wonder why. What it's kind of weird. Is like, you know, how probably the one thing, if you're a white person, do not listen to rap, because if you start singing the lyrics, you'll say the word, and I see it. It's like a poor way to assimilate into the current hegemonic American culture, which is kind of acidic and dissolving. But it's like their poor way to try to assimilate to the new ordeal of civility, which unfortunately it's not gonna work out. It's like, you're trying to. I remember like a girl was like Kendrick Lamar invited some like white teen,
They're also
like a
asking
young.
what you think of. I'm guessing these are the Easter candy Peeps.
Oh,
Peace
Peeps. I don't mind them. I like them. I
I
mean,
always
I
feel
think
like they're just like a microwave disaster waiting to happen.
well, you don't microwave them.
Yeah.
They're basically like sugar. They're like sugar,
It's like,
like
sugar with marshmallow, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like some sugar with your marshmallow?
Hmm.
That's what I
They were
feel like. Anytime I've eaten a Peep, I'm always disappointed.
Yeah. Also, like, nobody could finish a box of Peeps by themselves.
No, that's true in my experience. I always gotta like I gotta pass them around because I know I'll never eat them all. I mean, I don't like eating desserts. I'm trying to cut back on those, but
Yeah, no, desserts. There's a little bit too much dessert there.
mhm. Well, I'm getting ready to go to bed soon. Is there anything else you want to cover?
From this week, let me think. What else happened this week of importance? I guess to circle back, just to the bank story before we finish. Did you see the Silicon Valley Bank's head of risk management? You see what was her main focus? Was it reducing wait, no. Basu does bring one up. Hold on. The Jussie Smollett story had a very, very interesting turn this week. Did you see that his quote unquote attackers went on and they reenacted it for television? The two brothers, yeah.
The Nigerians, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
they went on national television and reenacted it for his big staged hate crime where he couldn't even hire. They remade the scene. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Yellow Lantern? Oh, there's something about this story that's just fascinating, right, Yellow Lantern?
Yeah. Oh,
For
man.
MAGA country.
It just, I mean, it's so hilarious. I just think it's like that whole case was just something else. Like, I mean, it just immediately I knew exactly like it was like, okay, who assaults a guy in the middle of like negative-degree wind chill in Chicago?
Who's
Like,
walking around
politically,
with bleach?
yeah. And it's someone who, like, they write a letter that looks like you wrote with your offhand. You walk around with a noose. Like, just what exactly is going on here? And
Like,
the thing is,
like,
Oh,
oh,
and
you
it,
drew it in crayon or something? Like, what's?
no, and it gets even better. He walked into the police station with a fucking Subway sandwich.
Gave him
yeah,
little
it's like, for
noogies?
someone who
Wait,
allegedly
they
suffered
noogied
such an
him?
egregious, for someone who allegedly suffered an egregious crime and a mortal insult, you seem to be taking it rather well. And
I
it's
mean,
like,
let's be real. If I got hit with a hate crime, or you got hit with a hate crime, or Ghost got hit with a hate crime, would you go to Subway next?
I mean, you got to eat fresh,
I don't eat bread, so I would say I would definitely not go to Subway.
Mm, I mean, I wouldn't get like a whole sub at Subway. I get like,
Maybe a 6
half.
inch instead of a foot long.
Yeah.
No homo though. You gotta say no
Imagine just
homo
going
though.
in covered in bleach, like. Wait, so they noogied
Yeah,
him
gotta
to
have.
give him a little scar?
And also he walked into the law enforcement like police station with the noose around his neck still.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's like,
Mr. Smollett, you're a danger to yourself. Please take that off.
it's like that scene when like from like the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie where they attempt a mutiny and the captain just like controls the ship's wirings to like he arrests all the pirates trying to revolt, and Jack Sparrow's all wrapped up and he's like, I'd like to report a mutiny, Captain. Like, oh yeah, like don't pretend like you weren't in on this as well, huh? And just the whole
Really?
thing is
Jack Sparrow, the rambunctious pirate who, various. Oh, Kai, no one always keeps people guessing. That guy didn't do it? Makes you think. It's the jogging noggin, doesn't it?
yeah, man, that year 2019, people forget how crazy that year started off. You also had remember the Covington Catholic boys who were like the Nick
Yeah,
Sandman was like,
the kid who went to court and won like $100 million from CNN because they literally tried to ruin his life and destroy him.
well, I mean, even like immediate, like what was he doing? He's just smiling, just standing there, like, and they ruined his, and then they even doubled down. They tried to like make it so like they were wearing, they had like the school blackout where like all the kids were wearing like black shirts and stuff, and they tried to like double down by trying to claim that the school was like perpetuating the racist stereotypes. I'm like, I did that when I was in junior high. You never heard of the blackout stuff? Like all the students would wear like black. They would wear the color. Even the even the non-white students got in on the act. That was the whole point of like black school blackouts.
What school blackout? What I've never heard of this.
Sometimes schools do these events where like they want to like black out the competition of their rivals, so they'll
Oh,
have
you're
all the
talking
fans.
like school pride thing, right? Where you all wear like
Yeah.
the colors
Yeah.
of your school.
Yeah, and sometimes schools would do like blackouts where like they would have the black shirts, but also like neon style of their like school colors.
So that when they
even
all
if you
sit in like the bleachers, you've got this big wave of school colors at the other school.
kind of like that, and it's just
Yeah.
like not only did they tried to double down, they tried to like they tried to insinuate that the school was like a secret racist school, and like and all that, it was just 100% defamation and slander. And Sandman, like, the settlement was done because, well, they were about to go to Discovery, I think. If I recall correctly.
It would not have ended well for them.
No, so
Especially 'cause
I mean,
Sandman
most
is has a unique what's the word? Being a child, and like the the offender is being clearly in the wrong. Like, oh boy, you don't you don't want to be on the other side of an actual jury, right? You don't want a jury to take a crack at that case because they're gonna be like, "What the hell are you doing?"
For
Mhm.
It would not be wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just gotta be.
2019, better times.
yeah, but we'll see. We'll see what happens next. I mean, I'm excited for it because next year, I'm assuming next year, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 4 will come out, and that trailer was enough to get the whole
But there's
Dragon
no
Ball
way
video.
there will be more characters than the old games, right?
No, I think they have to. Like, the people will riot if it's less than 150 characters.
But what do you qualify as individual characters? Do you qualify like Super Saiyan 3 Goku and Super Saiyan God Goku as two different characters?
Yeah, that's what I think. Like, characters and transformations, I think they expect everybody
Okay,
from
I
Budokai
don't think
3.
that's undoable.
Yeah.
Someone's asking your opinion of JUIC Juice?
Oh, Juice WRLD.
Juice World was
Another. I think he was another rapper that was killed.
Another rapist.
he died from ODing on Percocet. Because
Percocet is what? Is that pain pills?
Yeah, it's a drug that treats.
yeah,
Was it fentanyl that got him? Because I've heard that
No.
like these pain pills are getting cut with like what do you call it? A lot of fentanyl.
no, he just
Causing
took
a
like
lot of deaths.
he just took like 10 of them because he was getting raided by the feds when it happened.
Oh man, I wonder if that's
So-
ever happened before, but I don't know. I don't know. Taking a lot of a very dangerous substance all at once, leading to some sort of cardiac or event, but I can't think of any such cases.
I mean, they found 70 pounds of marijuana as well.
I can't think of any such cases out loud, right, Yellow Lantern?
Oh no.
But let's just take a deep breath here and think about this seriously. Is all I'll say. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay, so he
officially
died
he
from
of-
he literally died from overdosing on pills because he was going to be arrested for said pills. Wait, is it illegal to have those pills?
Percocets, it's considered oxycodone.
Oxycodone is like
Is the generic name.
Okay.
It's an
It's like
opioid.
It's a generic opioid rather than like the brand name opioid, like Vicodin or
Yeah.
or whatever.
It's the same thing as Vicodin, basically.
Oh, so it's just Vicodin.
It's
Oh,
Vicodin
generic
mixed with
Vicodin.
codeine, basically.
So I guess the question was, what do you think about this character that OD'd on Percocets?
I mean, it's same. I mean, I don't really like rap music, so I don't know if that would be stuff. But like, again, it's just the same type of criminal lifestyle, same type of music. Again, maybe
You're
if he
saying like an
wasn't-
obsession with hedonism and
Yeah, like it's the same
I'm-
type. This I can make the same problem with country music as well. Modern country music has the same trappings and stuff, but like, or the ones that get popular. But yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of atonal music, and yeah, there are some good rap line. Rap music is more like sing song poetry stuff, and
well,
it's.
I mean, Shakespeare. Shakespeare is supposed to be sung, not read. But yes, I get what you're saying. There's always song and poetry have always been interlinked. But yes, I think what I've heard of rap music that it is kind of like poetry with a bass line, right?
Yeah, my favorite. Yeah, I mean, I remember when for our science class, I remember in high school we watched the epic rap battle of history where they had Stephen Hawking versus Albert Einstein. It was I mean,
That's a
there's ways
YouTube
to-
channel, right? Where they have like Darth
Yeah.
Vader and like and Gandhi and
The epic rap battles of history. Yeah, the favorite one of that was when it was like the lines were kind of funny, where he's like, this is Albert, like, when I apply my battle theory, mine's are relatively blown. So take a seat, Steve. Oh, I see you brought your own. And I'm like, oh, that's a good diss. And a funny line, and there's some funny lines. It's like, I'm as dope as two rappers. You better be scared because that means Albert E equals MC squared. And I'm like, I face palm, but I also laugh because it's like
it's
my
like a
God.
good cringe, right? Like a
Yeah,
positive
it's
cringe.
like when you tell a dad joke, it's funny, and they're like, get out of my sight. I don't want to see you again.
You're both the butt of the joke. You're the punchline and the punchline
Mhm.
giver at the same time. Like you're telling the cringe joke is part of the joke, and the joke itself is like cringe funny.
Mhm. And it's funny because when you look up the lyrics and you're like, oh my God, I get the reference here. Because like Stephen Hopkins says, like, I'll be stretching out the rhymes like gravity will stretch time. You can't put your pea brain to this next kind of mind. I'm like, oh my God, he used the brain measurement from like science and quantum mechanics. I'm like, oh man, like you have to have a very
You
convoluted
need a very
understanding.
high IQ to understand epic rap battles of history. I understand.
There are some
Yeah,
like
it's like-
good lines about that.
It's like Rick and Morty.
And there's been some good like I remember the line where the infamous like Adolf Hitler versus Darth Vader. They made that a trilogy, and I'm like, you can't do that. You cannot make this in this present day. I don't know if you could. Like, imagine saying you're rooting for Hitler to win this epic rap battle against Vader, and then sometimes you're like
I
rooting
mean,
for Vader.
look, I'm not arguing what either of them is a good person. I'm just saying Darth Vader definitely had a bigger body count. Okay, and was much more directly involved in a lot of ways. Like look, I'm not saying either of them are good people. I'm just saying, uh, you know, uh, Darth Vader does have the high score. Okay.
Oh, geez. When you put it like that.
But
I mean, he destroyed a
but
planet.
obviously Darth Vader is not a real person. But if we're approaching it of the fictional perspective of observing which character is worse, I'm just saying Vader has the high score. Okay. And he also is very guilty of specific ethnic targeting of groups and oppression of different species, as well as religious oppression and other things on top of that. Like he also did that. But yes, both very evil people. Just to clarify, all right. Obviously we can look at this through the lens of parody and what it's for.
Yeah. I think my favorite. So yeah, there's some funny episodes. There's some duet ones. There's the one with James Bond versus Austin Powers, and then the Sean Connery James Bond comes in to spit bars at both of them. Like there's a way to make it work, but in general, like I just tend to stay away.
I'm sorry, wait, spit bars?
Yeah, spitting fire, spitting bar. That's the slang term for like giving a verse that's like a big diss on the.
Like a candy bar?
It's like an
bar.
MC Jarva track.
Oh,
like a sound bar?
No, so like MG, you know how like MC Jarvo's drop is it's just Matt Jarvo just rapping but deep fake. So they're saying like,
well,
oh shoot,
I wouldn't say it's deep fake. His is just taking voice lines and amalgamating them into a song, which is a little different if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe that is how deep fake works. But when you say a bar, like what does that mean?
like dropping bars is like a good rap song. or a good diss track.
But why bars specifically? Why not just say an epic diss track?
So like a bar is like a, that's just a name for like a line. That's just the slang term. So like it's like the idea is like your bars are sharp, or like your bars are basic, where it's like saying your lines are not
Like
that
cell phone
impressive.
reception?
No, like it's like if you read the lyrics of a song, the bars are the lines.
Oh, like the musical notes?
No, the lyrics.
Oh, each lyric is a bar.
Yeah,
Or set of lyrics. Is it
that's
like...
what that's.
Okay. I think I understand. Like sentences in a paragraph, maybe? Would be a way to grok it. But
Mhm.
musically? Okay. Hardest line. Okay. Well, I'm sorry we've kept you extra long, Yellow Lantern.
No problem.
Obviously you've got your latest update on your Substack. You got your Thanksgiving, or not Thanksgiving, St. Patrick's Day update to your Substack that kind of lays it out. So if anyone's interested in seeing Memory Eternalist's latest Substack article, his St. Patrick's Day update is on there, and that provides kind of a roadmap for what articles are coming up. If I'm to understand that correctly.
Yes, I'll try to crank out a couple of them before I go on. There's a conference trip I'm planning in April, so I'll try to get at least one or two of these out before then.
Conference trip. What can you
Well,
share about
I'm
that?
going to a like recently one of my friends, Ryan Turnipseed, he was at the Mises Institute, and he did a talk there. I'm going to an event similar to that.
Interesting. So like a think tank gathering, or like...
Kind of. Or just like a fun.
I think what happened at that event would be a very interesting Substack article.
Yeah, I'll mention it. I'm actually meeting one of the authors of the book reviews that I'm doing.
Oh, that's actually very cool.
Yeah, I'm
Are
gonna
you
get
going
to
to
meet
write the book review before or after you talk to him?
after, I think.
I feel like you should almost do both. Like, write your impression first, and then talk with him about his own book, and see if your opinion changes after having talked with the author.
Yes.
But that sounds pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay, so you've got a big conference to go to, and you'll be able to. Everyone will be able to hear all about what happened there.
Right.
Interesting. Well, glad to hear it, and your health is all better too, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I don't gain too much weight. That all the ones I lost, I want to try to stay healthy-ish.
Well, I would advise keeping active and eating right, if at all possible. That's usually the way I go about it.
Yeah.
And it's
just
worked so far.
keeping myself away from, really.
Too much Southern comfort.
I don't actually drink alcohol.
Oh, that's
very
alcohol. I
rarely.
thought that meant like comfort food. My bad.
Oh, well, there is an alcoholic beverage called Southern Comfort, so
I realized that after I said it. I was like, oh, right, that is an alcohol thing, isn't it?
yeah, I don't really like to. I think it's like I feel like if one way to lose is don't eat before you go to bed, because your
Yeah.
food
You definitely want to eat during the middle of the day, because that's when you're still active and your body can process it.
hmm I think most people say if you eat between 10 and 7 o'clock, and then you don't eat anything beforehand, breakfast notwithstanding, you'll be fine.
Are you a practitioner of intermittent fasting?
Well, sort of.
It's kind of what you're describing, right? Like, eating once a day.
There are certain. I've already given up certain foods for Lent, so.
Lend them out?
And. What'd you say?
Did you lend those foods out?
Haha, you get it. Well,
See,
Lance
that's a dad joke.
yeah. You want to hear one? I got one. This is speaking.
Go ahead.
Why would a golfer make a good chef?
I don't know why.
Because his cooking skills are par for the course.
I love it. Let me tell you a dad joke I heard recently. Did you know that the first French fry was not made in France, but in Greece?
Get out of
Yeah.
here! Get out of here! I had another one. No,
Take
one,
my
here's-
coat.
I got this one. All right, my one goes like this. One time, I actually knew a girl. I was in when I was in kindergarten. I knew a girl who one time we were eating food and she accidentally mixed up the glue for the sour cream. I tried to ask her how such a mix-up could occur, but she said her lips were sealed shut on the matter.
God damn it.
All right, you gotta end it with your own dad joke.
Oh gosh, I had that last one in the chamber. Let me think. Give me time. Gosh, my own. Yeah, no, Geeky. We both gave dad jokes. Geeky has to give a dad joke. Let's have Geeky give the last one because I don't actually have another one in the chamber. Fortunately. Geeky, do you have a dad joke for us?
The only one is my kid ever comes down to me, I'll go, "Hi, gay, I'm dad."
Sorry, I missed that. You kind of.
I said the only one I could think of is the famous one is like, it's like, hey, like your son's coming out, like, "Dad, I'm gay. Hi, gay, I'm dad."
I didn't hear that. It was
All
kind
right, well, I guess I'll be the one who ends it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, all right. Why would a ghost make a good lawyer?
because the opponent doesn't stand a ghost of a chance. I don't know. That's all I got.
Close. My pun is that is because possession is 9/10 of the law.
I love that it's ghost themed too. Thank you. Yellow Lantern, Memory Eternalist on Substack, and Yellow Lantern 9 on Twitter. At Yellow
19.
Lantern 9. 19, thank you. At Yellow Lantern 19 on Twitter. You can follow him for his takes on various modern events, historical events, and just the culture in general. He's got a lot of opinions about Batgirl. You can ask him any question about Batgirl, he'll have an answer you didn't think about. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, I know a lot about the Batcat. I'm mostly on the Green Lantern stuff now, but yeah, I mean, God.
Someone named Yellow Lantern has opinions about Green Lantern? I don't believe you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was St. Patrick's Day, and I won't besmirch them. I said I'll let them have this day.
You get today, Yellow Lantern, or Green Lantern, you hear that? He will not menace you today. It is the day of green. Oh man, I know we're kind of butting up against time, but do you have any interesting facts or stories about St. Patrick's Day, since it was St. Patrick's Day when we started the show?
Well, you know who he was, right?
I'm actually not too aware of. Is he the guy that he drove the snakes out of Ireland or something?
Kind of. He's the patron saint of Ireland as well. Yeah, he was the patron saint. So this is in Irish, it's called La Feire Padrig.
That Celtic?
Gaelic.
Gaelic, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
See, and what is it? Is it special in Gaelic?
Yeah, it means the day of St. Patrick's Day's. Patrick is spelled Padrig in Gaelic. And his day is this. He's a patron, a saint of a lot of places. Ireland, Nigeria, Montserrat, the Archdiocese of New York, Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Newark, Los Angeles, Boston, Rolo, a lot of places. And it's interesting is that, there's been a lot of these Legend of Miracles, using the Shamrock as an illustrative parable. Yeah, and one of the legends, as a saint work, he banished the snakes. He fasted on the mountain.
May I ask, why did he banish the snakes? Were they like causing trouble?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just it's notable thing because Ireland is like a unique place where like there is no native natural snakes that lived on the Erie.
Did snakes get into Ireland?
They never did.
Oh, but then how did is they saying because of him there are no snakes in Ireland?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
Well, that's one of the legends of the saintly works.
But there are no snakes in Ireland.
Well, the reason is because the snakes attacked him during his fast on the mountain.
Why was he fasting on a mountain?
Well, let's go.
Is that like part of monkdom or something, or?
Well, it was part of the thing, Well, I mean,
Lent?
Patrick was being harassed. Saint Patrick, he was being harassed by birds that were sent but with demonic intention. And he banished them.
Wait. Magic birds?
No, not magic. He was trying to fast. The same thing he was fasting. Lord said the way to it was just a mountain fast, he was doing this to basically spare the land of Ireland from being, having the worst plagues happen to it by the Lord. So he took the judgments and fasted for them as he was,
What?
facing all these demonic forces on
But
this
why
mountain.
would plagues hit Ireland?
Basically, well, the story goes is that, the mountain, so Ireland was becoming cursed with these demonic forces that were at this mountain. And so when Patrick was being attacked by them, he decided to go to the mountain and fast to gain the spiritual authority and the power from God to cleanse the soul of the nation and save Ireland from being damned to hell by the judge and demonic forces that were on that island.
Huh. Why was that happening? Like, why were there demonic
evil.
forces at a mountain?
I mean, yeah, that's the idea. Evil and good are in a constant battle. Satan and his minions will come and try to drag people down to hell with their sins and waiting them. And corruption goes everywhere.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, the whole thing of sainthood is that he's associated with the color green, with the four-leaf clover.
Lucky four-leaf clover, yes.
Yeah, and it became
Nick, I've
more
told you
like,
no questions about drugs on this channel, sir.
What?
don't worry.
Special exception. He illegally immigrated first. He got crossed the line.
Well, he was actually and the thing is, his saltire is red, so like the saltire on the British Union Jack, it comes from St. Patrick. The saltire, the cross, the saltire cross that's on the British flag, the Scottish flag, the battle flag of the Confederacy, it comes from St. Patrick's saltire.
Really?
Yeah, and well, one of them is. It was also combined, so like, there's two of them. The St. Patrick saltire is it's combined with St. Andrew's Cross of Scotland and the St. George's Cross of England. So it forms the Union flag. of the Union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
So is that kind of like the Irish aspect of the United Kingdom's flag?
Yeah, of Northern Ireland.
Huh. I did not know that.
Hmm.
Learn
That's what the
something
flag
new
of
every day.
Yeah, so the flag of Scotland has it has the blue flag with a white saltire, and the Irish flag would be the one with the red saltire, and the of course the Irish Republic that broke away has a different flag, but the Northern Ireland still remains.
UK used to control all of Ireland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Used to be,
Yeah, used
kind of
to.
like the Raj of India or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that famine was artificial made.
What the potato famine?
Yep.
Okay, that's actually very cool. Thank you for sharing that information. We all learned something about St. Patty's Day. Well, I mean, I did. I don't know about the rest of you. I speak only for myself.
No
Well,
problem.
why did the Confederate flag have so specifically the cross again? I'm sorry.
So I mean you see it on the flags of a bunch of other places as well. Um to explain, this one's going to be kind of an interesting point.
You talk about that. Wait, foreskin game? What? Or do you mean Forspoken?
Oh god.
Didn't the
Or-
company just shut down because of it?
Yes.
I think they fired or they like cleaned house and fired the staff because it was a
Are
bad
you
game.
telling me there was a perfectly predictable consequences of their own actions?
It had a $100 million budget?
No, 100. What?
Batsu, that's what Batsu says in the chat.
They spent $100 million on that Forspoken game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you know what? They deserve what they got.
Wow. That's incredible. Who wow. Isn't the whole thing they got the actress from Thor to be in it?
Tessa Thompson? Valkyrie?
Yeah, isn't it Tessa Thompson in that game?
I don't know.
Why did that game have an $100 million budget? I'm gonna be honest, Basu. I am baffled by that. That's I'll say this. That was a bad idea, giving that much money to to those devs, because I heard that game fell flat on its face. So the studio shut down after spending $100 million on it. What? Well, I'll say this, Basu. They should have made a better game. I think that's the only obvious thing we can deign from this is that, you know, maybe they would still have a maybe they would all still have jobs if they made a better game. Tough. It's a tough job, but someone's got to fail it. Interesting. All right. Well, I won't keep you any further, Yellow Lantern. Thank you.
The battle design of the battle flag. I can give you that one as my last thing. So,
Land on a high note.
yeah. Okay. So, in that, with the United States, with the secession of the first 7 states, they had their own sovereignty flags. They basically raised their own symbols. They had their own flags because, well, they were independent republics now. You know, when they decided to confederate into their own
They were going to be a
confederation,
loose federation of aligned states
basically, yeah, they
rather
were, you know,
than a union federalized
they didn't
system.
actually have to. They could have actually just stayed as independent republics, but obviously they knew they wanted to stick together. Texas could have just become another republic again, but they
Texas
all chose to,
technically, on paper, can still become a republic, but
maybe
uh, on paper,
depends. You know, it depends if suddenly the system of legitimacy enters crisis, but we'll not get into that.
yeah.
So the
Well, I mean,
first,
the system will create a crisis if it needs one. Yes, I think that's
yeah.
abundantly
So
clear.
what ends up happening here is that the new Confederate government held a contest for what was going to be the flag of the new nation. They had a contest. They started getting designs, and so
Kind of like what they did with Betsy Ross and the original flag.
yeah. And so after like hundreds of entries and design concepts, the winner of this there was a Prussian artist from Alabama or was he Austrian? I think he was Austrian. He gave because he liked the Austrian flag with its red, white, and red. So we decided to design one that because the CSA said that they still wanted to pay homage to the original Union, so they created their red, the first flag, which is called the Stars and Bars, which, by the way, many people call the battle flag the Stars and Bars. I just want to get on the record that is not the Stars and Bars. The Stars and Bars is the first national flag of the Confederate States. The one
I
with
see.
red, white, and red, and the blue canton, which originally had 7 stars for the original 7 states in the Confederate States. And this was accepted. Now, then they started increasing the stars as more states seceded to join. And what ended up happening was, on the battlefield, there was a problem. The US flag, national flag, and the Confederate national flag looked too similar, and there may have been instances of friendly fire. They wanted to avoid that. So one of the rejected designs was designed by somebody who wanted a cross for their symbol. And so this rejected design was a saltire. It was a St. George's cross, and what he wanted to do, what's kind of funny is that they wanted to be nominally Christian as well as a flag of Christ. What he realized is well, wait a minute, we're primarily Episcopalian and Baptist, but we have Catholics, we have some Jews, we have some Quakers, and maybe they're not that keen on the St. George's cross because
Maybe we
Irish
shouldn't divide ourselves on this line.
Yeah, so well, if we put it as an X, the saltire is a saint of Saint Andrew, then everyone can now relate to it better. And that's what William Poncher Miles said. He was the designer of the flag, and this became the standard battle flag of the Army of Northern Virginia. They were the first to grab it, and it had 12 stars originally, because at that point only 12 states and some shadow government, a couple of them had pledged their allegiance to the Confederacy.
Are you telling me that Abraham Lincoln managed the country so poorly that a bunch of people were all seceding?
Well, it's kind of a thing, a lot of people like to praise Lincoln. It's kind of weird, some people might come around to disliking him because it's no great man literally helps instigate a provocation and a conflict where he, says that half his country is in quote unquote rebellion when they say they're not. And doing so kind of wages war on them and helps launch the bloodiest war in American history, which ended slavery as a byproduct, not as an aim. Which, even itself, people realize a lot of slaves just still died from the war because of the sudden emancipation with no plan of what to do with the slaves after they were freed. There's a book about this, Sick from Freedom. At minimum, 250,000 slaves had died during the war and after the war from disease, lack of nutrition. Some of them were in camps, in contraband camps, and they just died out.
They weren't in
Kind of
happy camps?
No, contraband camps.
I know, just being silly. Sorry.
Did they have ADD or something?
No.
Sorry, that's concentration
Okay,
camps.
so back to what I was saying. So the battle flag and other regiment flags grew in popularity, despite the fact So it's 1863. The Confederate Congress wants to give a new design flag, the final one, because like I said, they know the flaws. The first national flag has problems looking like the U.S. flag, so they decided to create one with a battle flag in it. The canton, some was just the battle flag itself. One was with one with a red border around the battle flag, like the battle flag canteen in the corner with a red border. One with a white, blue, white pattern with the thing, and another with an interesting one with like a sundial, where like the flag of the South with the cross was there,
Sundial?
but
That
instead of
almost sounds
stars
pagan.
along the stars. Well, so the idea is like, so the flag would have looked like the flag with the saltire, but in the middle was a sun with 13 rays. You know what I mean?
The
Can you imagine,
13 original states.
yeah. And that was, so they decided on one that just, that was called the camp flag or Jackson flag, because this one was just a white flag with the battle flag in the corner. This one was called the stainless banner. Now this one was better because, okay, it doesn't look like the U.S. flag, but the problem is, if there's no wind, they won't see the canteen. People would mistake it for a flag of truce or surrender.
Ah.
And so
What's the problem with
army.
that? It sounds like it's deceptive and tricky.
Yeah, well, they still didn't want to do that because, like I said, perfidy is a war, unless they didn't want to, like, still.
It's only a war
confuse
crime if you lose.
Yeah, I know that excuse and that funny reason. So, in the last year of the war, the Confederate Congress again revised the flag to include a red bar at the end, made the battle flag canton bigger, and basically this was the final. This was called the bloodstained banner in honor of the troops. Now, this flowed for about a few months when the Confederacy surrendered officially by May of 1865, and the Confederate government had basically collapsed, and the country basically dissolved and was militarily occupied for another 10 years.
They were reintegrated into the United States in a painful Reconstruction period.
Yeah, which, man, Reconstruction is such, you think the historiography of the Civil War is kind of crazy. You should see what Reconstruction is.
It's what would happen if Russia pulled out of Ukraine. There'd be a long, painful reintegration period for those territories as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny is that, I was reading excerpts from Nightmare Vision's Invisible Empire, which is a book about what caused the rise of the early Klan, which, spoilers, it was a reaction to the corruption, to the political intimidation and violence from the Union Leagues, from the Reconstruction governments using black militias and militia members of freedmen to go around intimidating voters, murdering them, burning out their barns. It was that bad. And, it's like, it's weird how we're taught today that, like, the mainstream academic wisdom, it's everything, the idea that, like, oh, these people were just making up the corruption. The real problem with the Reconstruction is that the victorious Union didn't go far enough or go around executing POWs and civilians. Well, they did do that, but they're like, they should have had more. And, like, it really kind of shows that this new history has nothing with telling the truth. It's more about ethnic revenge fantasies and just really, really, really evil stuff they want to do to the present.
Well, when people define what they do with historical events, might be a look into how they want to view the future.
Yeah, and I'm not so sure, given what's coming down the pipeline, if things stay the same or, like, quote-unquote, nothing ever happens.
Well, I think there's one thing for sure. 1984 is a textbook, not a fictional book, I think, for modern leaders.
Yeah, I think the tyranny's closer with Brave New World, to be honest.
Yeah, Not wrong. Definitely, there's an aspect to that.
I mean, what's the state of the army now? Recruiting seems to be down. Our pride is in the gutter. Most people don't want to serve this. What do we do? Hey, let's rename all the bases from Confederate leaders, from like abstract ones nobody's ever heard of. Let's tell army units that you have to remove your campaign streamers. Did your army unit form during the war between the states? Did it fight in some battles and you recorded it down on campaigns? Nope, you're removing those streamers. You know what those are, ghosts, like the records of like their battles that the people have fought in.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar.
Yeah, they're literally telling the army that you have to like expunge. You have to like literally.
I still think 1984 is far more accurate. I mean, let me remind you of a passage that everyone had a television screen in front of their face that was tracking and watching them at every moment, and come on, tell me that's not cell phones. Like, come on, that's absolutely freaking cell phones, and they're collaborating with the government to track and track everyone's actions at all times and take away their privacy.
Even in the 1950s,
rewriting children's books, the whole Roald Dahl situation.
Yeah, I mean, even the night people were calling this even back before the telephone. When the telephone was just first invented, they were saying, "Oh, they're going to create, ones where they're."
Well, they're gonna listen in on phone calls, which they definitely are and doing. I mean, between the NSA, it's for safety. The NSA, the FBI, and all these secret police organizations, they're absolutely doing that. Like 100%. It's okay to keep us safe, right? I heard a very interesting take on January 6th the other day too.
What?
That the reason for the events was so that they could not, present legal cases that would have had standing for challenging results of the election, right? Because in a traditional election certification, members of the minority party would have had the right to submit forward actions that could, form the basis of a future court case. Even if they failed on the floor, having them entered into the record would have given them standing, standing to actually investigate what happened. And so, if you perhaps coordinated with police and the Capitol Hill police and with agitators to stage a emergency, you could then justify coming back and saying we have to certify these results under an emergency where there will be no resolution submitted. I just found that quite interesting. I had not heard that aspect of it.
I mean, well, for all things and purposes, it was. I would say it was a. The thing was more or less a protest that was egged on by bad actors and people who. I
kind of see it like a Reichstag fire myself, but history doesn't repeat; it rhymes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same problem as that. The same thing with Charlottesville and all these others. We know pretty clearly that people's beliefs about how the system operates is not how it is at all. And I feel like, the people got the wrong idea that BLM and Antifa and their supporters got a blank check to destroy cities for a whole summer, and they showed up for us. They still did. What if we showed up and, we had our demands meet just like they did? Nope. As Molbluck says, those protests were a flex, not a pride of oppression. Those protests were allowed because the system already agreed with them. Whereas the people at Charlottesville, January 6th, or the Canadian truckers, they learned that their protests were not regime approved, and they got the books thrown at them.
Well, I mean, I think there was a lot of efforts to kind of recontextualize, the left-wing protest movement after Occupy Wall Street. Hey, let's use this let's take this destructive energy and channel it in one direction instead of letting it, organize and try to effectively push for meaningful change.
Yeah, I mean, but there's always that aspect of Occupy Wall Street that was also kind of cringe and proto BLM stuff, but I digress.
Yeah. I mean, it's all very sad and disappointing.
And now, what is what's gonna does America become more like South Africa, Brazil, East Germany even? Or maybe just a worse version of the Soviet Union? Who knows?
No, I don't think we're worse versus the Soviet Union because despite our best efforts, we can still feed people. Despite our best
now.
efforts to ban fertilizer and all these things for crop production and yield, there's enough of markets to still feed people. There's enough left of the market to actually prop up the zombie.
Alright, well, I don't want to dwell on the negative too much. Well, I'm finished for now, and I'll see you next week. Are we on for the Bad Batch? We're gonna
Yes,
restart.
we're on for the Bad Batch next week. Just try to get a response to me before 7 p.m. Pacific, because I was like, wait, like half an hour. I'm like, come on. Ah, shit.
I didn't know. I usually get a message from you, and then all right, I'll be there.
My bad for not getting to you earlier. I'll make sure in the afternoon to message you this time.
Yeah.
So my bad, but let's give us an extra week to wait for the final episode.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because the final episode will be on the 29th, so we could actually do 7 next Thursday and 7 the other Thursday, and we'd be done with Bad Batch.
Wow. And then what's after that? Well, Fallen Order, but we don't want to watch a gameplay playthrough. So.
And I don't really want to replay it either, because I 100% it the first time, not really up to.
Good. All right. Good night, Ghost. Enjoy the rest of your stream.
I will. Yellow Lantern, you have a great one.
Goodbye.
Bye. Alright, that's it for Yellow Lantern. That's it for Geeky. Thank you everyone for coming to the show. Snorlax, I could not ask your question because he was saying goodbye, and we were already well over time there at the end. I need Yellow Lantern to go get to sleep. So, sorry. The time for questioning was over. We were moving on, so I could not ask your question because it would have extended long beyond the time that we had intended. So I'm going to close up the stream there, and I'm going to restart it. We're going to do some post show for probably 2 or 3 hours, and then we're going to wrap it up. So I will see you all on the flip side. So thank you very much.